What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart, where I do 2 live stream shows per day. We do one in the morning at 8 a.m. Or in this case, 8:19. Apologies for starting a little late here. And another at 6 p.m. So 2 shows a day. We got this first one of the doubleheader coming up, and we got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about the Eagles and Nick Siranni, who made some comments about A.J. Brown and his future with the Philadelphia Eagles. Does it appear like this couple is headed for a divorce? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Also want to talk about Darryn Peterson actually commented and responded to some of the criticism coming his way as more and more people are coming out questioning whether the superstar freshman at Kansas should be this year's #1 pick in the NBA draft and what is an absolutely loaded NBA draft. Kansas had, one of their biggest wins of the season last night, beating Houston at home. Fog Allen Fieldhouse continues to be a special place and a tough place for road teams to come in and win, and they get a huge win over a top 4 team. So maybe all is forgiven for now, but of course with that situation it seems like it could be any day or any moment in the game that he's sick put himself out. So who's to say that this doesn't become an issue? But he says that he's hoping that this is not going to be an issue moving forward regarding his availability. Big game in the NBA last night. Spurs go into Detroit and beat on the Pistons. Want to have this kind of conversation about the Spurs in terms of title contention and which one of these teams actually is more equipped to potentially go on a run to the NBA Finals. So we'll talk about that as well. And, I got to get to this. If there's one avenue that I haven't quite hit on 40 days and 40 nights quite yet, and I've hit almost everything in terms of what I love. Love sports, obviously. Love movie, television stuff, obviously. Love hip-hop, obviously. Love wrestling. By the way, shout out to AJ Styles. He's going to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in this upcoming WrestleMania, so that's really exciting. So shout out to AJ Styles, great career, and a good choice. I think some of this is let's get all of this out the way before he eventually goes and signs to do one final run with either an AEW or even a TNA or whatever, but I'll put that to the side. Shout out to AJ Styles. So we hit almost everything, except one thing. One interest of EJ that I love dearly that I've not talked about, but I will talk about because I spent all night last night pretty much watching this Pistons Spurs game and focused on this thing. Comic books. Not comic book movies, not comic book television shows, comic books. So I gotta talk to you guys, man, because we're in the middle of what is one of the big comic book events that are happening right now, Ultimate Endgame. So Marvel what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't restart the Ultimate Universe because this is a different universe than what was created before. But they've created a new Ultimate Universe. And when I tell you guys I've been obsessed with these comics, I started last May. I had heard that they were in Ultimate Comics. I wanted to get back into comics, and I was like, I need to start somewhere. So I said, why not start with a brand new universe that's just been created? But I was essentially a year and a half behind on the books. In order to catch up, I would have to read 2 years worth of comics to catch up. And finally, last night was the night that I officially caught up. Shout out to Marvel Ultimate Unlimited, by the way. That subscription service where you can get basically every comic book that comes out 3 months after it's come out. Lifesaver. Took me from this past May to this past February to catch up, but I officially caught up. And when I tell you this stuff is gas, I've been telling all my friends, I've been telling anybody I know about comics, that you need to get on the Ultimate Universe. And I read Ultimate Endgame 1. I just read Ultimates 19. I know Ultimates 20 is out already. I haven't gotten to that yet, but we're going to talk a little bit about this comic book universe that's been created and how awesome it's been. Shout out to Denise Camp who got to meet briefly at New York Comic Con. He's been the writer of The Ultimates, the comics, and the Ultimate Endgame book that is out currently, the big main event series that's happening right now. So we'll talk some comics as well, because I got to get into just how much I'm loving the Ultimate Universe. So we got a lot to get to, man. 40 days, 40 nights with your boy, EJ Stewart. We're going to have a lot of fun here, and I can't wait, man. Let's do it. So let's begin talking about Nick Siranni and the Philadelphia Eagles. So Siranni combines this week, and workouts will begin on Thursday. Oops, don't want that up. Combines this week. Workouts are up Thursday. And Siranni spoke with the media prior to the combine and said that he cannot guarantee that A.J. Brown will be back with the Eagles next season. Now, he says that he wants A.J. Brown back, and he said that he has indication that he thinks A.J. Brown wants to be back, and there is mutual interest into continuing this relationship. But when it came to coming down to it, could he confirm that A.J. Brown would indeed remain with the Philadelphia Eagles next year? Siranni would not go that far in his commentary. So that's where I bring up this quote here that I'll put to you here. He said, quote, "Oh, will AJ be here next season? I think we're still in a spot. I can't guarantee how anything's going to play out into next season. I'm going to be the best coach next season, but you can't guarantee anything past tomorrow." So very non-committal when it comes to A.J. Brown's future with the Eagles. Howie Roseman has said essentially that, A.J. Brown's a good player. It's hard to replace good players. So, at this point in time, he doesn't foresee, I guess, that A.J. Brown's going to be traded, but I think that's more smoke. And that's honestly more of a bat signal to other teams saying, hey, don't come in with some crappy offers thinking we're just going to give away A.J. Brown. He's a good player. He's not a guy we want to lose. We may have no choice to lose him because he's a malcontent and he doesn't seem to want to be here, but don't come in here with some nonsense. That's why I think more of what his offers, what his commentary is, not so much we love A.J. Brown, he's going to remain a Philadelphia Eagle for life, because Harry Roseman also is not saying that. I just feel like when I watch the Eagles A.J. Brown situation, it feels like, you know who they are? They are the high school couple who fought all the time, were kind of annoying, made everything about themselves, but you were like, whatever. But they worked. They worked right. They worked as a high school couple. All right, whatever. They're kind of cute. Whatever. You just kind of keep it moving. But they're annoying. They're always fighting. They're always causing scenes. You're like, these people, man. I can't. Why are they still together? But you're like, whatever. And then they go to college, and somehow they're still together. And then now all that cute stuff that was cute at 16 and 17 ain't cute at 21 and 22. And you're like, why don't you two break up? What is going on here? You've won your championship. You already were named prom queen, and prom king, which is the equivalent of winning a Super Bowl. You've already done all the accomplishments that this duo, in terms of their potential. No way in hell is this going to be a marriage for life. What are you doing here? Why don't either of you guys break up? And that's what I feel like when I think about the A.J. Brown, Nick Siranni whole Eagle situation with this team and this guy. Because he should have probably been traded last year, but they didn't have the stones to trade him after winning a Super Bowl, even though it was clear that he was unhappy. And it was clear that even though he won a Super Bowl, that wasn't going to be enough to satisfy this guy. And could you argue maybe the PR of it would have been very difficult for them to handle? Maybe. I could also argue that the PR of it, that would have been the best time to trade him, because who's doubting anything Howie Roseman does after winning a Super Bowl? There are a lot of other instances where you may say, okay, you haven't made the playoffs, or you lose a playoff game in the first round. People are going to be more critical. This might be the one time where people are going to be at the least critical of Howie Roseman at any point in his career, is whatever moves he makes after winning a Super Bowl. So I think the argument can be made that actually it would have made more sense to trade him after winning Super Bowl. He would have got less pushback and less controversy than maybe he would get right now if he trades him, because now Roseman's the best GM in the NFL. I think most people think he's awesome, but people are questioning a lot of different things they've made and decisions they've made in terms of whether or not they made the right steps, because the Eagles are a team, as my good friend Andrew Perloff said when he was here on 40 Days and 40 Nights, that they are Super Bowl or bust. Nick Siranni can be coming into this season. He may be fired after this season. So the bar is extremely high there. Why we're still dealing with this A.J. Brown situation? I know we're very early in the into the off season, but I just hope that this is finally the end of this annoying ass high school couple that thought they were the center of the world, that kept causing scenes and kept acting like they were this perfect couple when you knew they weren't. Like, I'm tired of these people. Like, I'm tired. Like, I know a lot of people, say that, oh, I'm tired of Philadelphia Eagles, tired of Philadelphia. I'm not usually one of those people, but I've become very tired of the A.J. Brown, Eagles, will they, won't they story. It's a terrible story. It's boring. And I wish these two would just give up. Just give up.
Cry me a river, willow.
Hold on, try one time.
Cry me a river, willow, Philadelphia fans.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are we doing here, man? A.J. Brown, under no circumstances, should be part of the Philadelphia Eagles next year. I don't think there's any argument to bring him back, to be honest. He's a diminishing player. He seems to hate Jalen Hurts, and it seems to be some kind of personal thing. And winning at all costs is not his priority. I don't know why you want that guy on your team. Like, the Eagles win at an extremely high rate. Every year they come into a season, in the last 4 seasons, they come in as legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And that's not enough for this guy. So if winning at all costs is not the priority of A.J. Brown for a team that is Super Bowl or bust, then what the hell is he doing there? And you're going to say, well, he's this great talent and he's this phenomenal player, and if we can get him on the right page, then maybe we can figure out a way to make this work. Again, I got news for you. I watched A.J. Brown play last year. He's still good. He's still good to very good. Is he good enough to deal with these headaches? Is he good enough to be a guy who's pulling in a different direction than the rest of the team? Football, they'll tell you a ton of times. Like, it's about every guy pulling in the same direction, understanding the goal, which is whatever they're trying to accomplish. Win a playoff game, win the Super Bowl, get to the playoffs, win the division, whatever. Everybody doing whatever it takes to get to that level and sacrificing whatever they got to sacrifice to get to that point. You can't have everyone else on the team willing to do that, and A.J. Brown says, I'll do that on one condition. If you throw me the ball 10 times a game, something like that. Like, that can't be part of this equation for the Eagles anymore. The question becomes, what could you get for A.J. Brown, and is that what may be holding up the Eagles? Because that is a question mark that I think is fair at this point, right? Like, he's entering, what for a lot of receivers are the years where you start to see some decline. Not all receivers. Some receivers his age can go out and still have, great seasons, and he may have a great season next year. But typically, when you're A.J. Brown, you have the tread on the tire that he has at this point in time. You do start to see maybe some decline. He's 28 years old, which you may think, oh, that's prime of his career. For a receiver, it's more of maybe the end of the prime, to be honest. I feel like a receiver's prime years are really like 25 to 29, 28. And he's going to be 29 in June. So he's going to be 29. I think you could probably still get a first for him. I know we've argued this. My good friend Rod Ray's been on the chat, and he's fought me with this. I think you might still be able to get a first for him if there becomes a bidding war. And that's what they traded for A.J. Brown. They traded a first to get him, and the Titans royally screwed that up, drafting Treylon Burks, which was a disaster. But that was the price that they gave up for him. I would assume Howie Roseman's going to want that price back for him this year. My question is, do the Eagles try to get a first rounder in this year's draft? Do they essentially try to do what the Titans did? Which is, let's get a first rounder for this year's draft. Let's draft a receiver in this year's draft. Because there are some, it's not the deepest receiver class, but in the first round, there's some guys. When you talk about Mekhi Lemon, who's one of my draft crushes right now when it comes to players I want for the Jets. When I think about Jordan Tyson, I think about Cardinal Tate might be a little too high for them. What's the name could be high for them as well, Tyson. But I've seen Tyson kind of moving all over the board now. Like the receivers maybe starting to slip a little bit. High when it comes to the actual player, but maybe low in terms of where they may get drafted, in terms of big board versus mock draft stuff. But I wonder if that's what the Eagles' game plan is to say, hopefully we can replace A.J. Brown with a cheap young guy that can come in and contribute right away. That would be, obviously, I think, the best solution. They may have to settle for a first-round pick next year and figuring out what they're going to do in terms of maybe bringing in a different kind of receiver, whether it's a trade, There's word that Michael Pittman may be someone that could be available if the Colts are helping or bring back Alec Pierce. I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't really understand that logic. I know Alec Pierce is one of the best deep threats in the NFL, and he has been for the last couple of years. It just feels like he's such a low percentage hit rate kind of guy when it comes to those deep completions. I would want somebody to compliment him who's a little more of a possession, high completion percentage kind of guy. So I don't know. I don't get that we can afford to trade Michael Pittman to keep Alec Pierce. I feel like I would do the opposite. I would say, let me find another fast guy that can go deep. And I think Alec Pierce is great. And I think Alec Pierce is another guy Jets could definitely look at. So it's not like I'm dissing him. It's more of just like based on what they have in terms of skill sets. I would assume it's a lot harder to get a Pittman than it is to get a Alec Pierce. That's me. But someone like Michael Pittman, someone that's available, so maybe they can trade AJ Brown and then swing around, make a trade for a younger guy who is, not maybe as talented, but maybe he's ready to take a next step up in that situation. I would love to see maybe the Eagles be aggressive from that standpoint. But this thing has to end. Like, I don't know what we're doing here at this point. Like, the fact that they're still doing this wishy-washy, well, we like him, but, we can't guarantee, and he wants to be here, but whatever. Last week, he's winking in the camera to Gronk and Edelman, trolling Patriots and Patriots fans. He says trolling. I tend to think otherwise. So yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why we're still doing the AJ Brown thing. Let's get into the chat. We got John Lean say, thanks for your service, AJ Brown. Enjoy dominating for the Browns. Browns definitely could use a receiver, for sure. Definitely got to do the where does AJ Brown fit conversation too. I'm also gonna adjust this. There you go. Let me adjust this lens a little bit. Yeah, AJ Brown. He would fit on the Browns. How many wins that comes with, I don't know. What is a legitimate fit for AJ Brown? I'm actually curious about this. I'm gonna go back to the over the cap. I'd love to see some of the teams potentially that would make sense for him. So it's just, I assume it's a team that's gonna want to absorb some money, I would think. Because usually with these deals come some kind of new contract, but not always, but sometimes. So I would assume he's gonna have to get some new money to come with whatever deal that he makes. The teams with the most money are the Titans, Raiders, Chargers. I keep looking at the Chargers, man. And I know there have been people that have been putting him in Chargers blue a ton. Him and Jim Harbaugh is kind of a weird fit. I don't know if he buys into the Jim Harbaugh shtick. He seems to be kind of like a guy who definitely... he seems to be a guy who's skeptical of like whatever you're trying to sell him. And he's not someone that's just gonna just buy in. I mean, this guy's playing for one of the best teams in the NFL. He's still unhappy, so I don't think he's just gonna say, "I'm willing to just go wherever and listen to whatever coach." So Jim Harbaugh has a certain shtick. I don't know if he's a Jim Harbaugh guy, but they do have $81 million in cap space, so they could afford to absorb his contract and maybe give him more money if they need to. I can't imagine that his agents allow him to go to the Titans, Raiders, or Jets. I don't think he wants to go back to the Titans either. That wouldn't make much sense. He's not going to Commanders. He's not going in the division. He's not going to the Seahawks. Seahawks, hey, you got Jackson Smith-Njigba saying actually the highest paid receiver in the NFL, so there's no way he's going there, and that's a team that you're competing with for a championship. He's not going to the Bengals. I don't think the Eagles will trade him to the Steelers. I'm surprised the Steelers have that much money. But I mean, there you see the Patriots with $42 million, and they certainly have the money to potentially make a move there. So if you're looking at teams just from a pure, and now these teams can manipulate their numbers to get it to be wherever they want in theory. But if you're just looking at it where it's at right now, as we are inching closer to free agency, I would say probably Chargers. I think you'd have to include the Raiders simply because the Raiders probably want someone to help for them, Mendoza out, and they desperately need a receiver. Do they want AJ Brown? I don't know, but I think they are desperate to get some ball players in Las Vegas. And then I think you look at the Patriots. And those are probably it, to be honest. Like, there's not a lot of money to be thrown around here. Maybe the Ravens. I've seen the Ravens get talked about a ton. They have $22 million. They probably could move around some money to fit in AJ Brown. So maybe that'd be one of the teams I'd look at. But I'm curious if he has a robust market at this stage of his career and being the malcontent that he is. How good is AJ Brown still? I think is a interesting question and an interesting thing to explore. I don't know, but I know one thing. I can't wait for this thing to be over. Like this. Is AJ Brown? Oh, would he? Won't he? I don't really understand that. He shouldn't be there. They don't want him. He don't seem to want to be there. But again, they're the high school couple who thinks that the world revolves around them, and they may find a way to stick this thing out. It wouldn't shock me somehow he was still back. That would be crazy. That would be insane. But I also think Howie Roseman. I don't think, as good a GM as he is, Howie Roseman doesn't strike me as a guy that says I will get 75 cents on the dollar just to get rid of a headache. He doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. I haven't seen him make that kind of trade. He's used to fleecing people. He's not the one to get fleeced. So the NFL may try to say, listen, this guy's a malcontent and a pain in the ass. I'm not giving you more than a second or a third for this guy. That's very possible. And Howie may have to, then there comes a decision. Well, Howie Roseman, will he, kind of hold his nose and just make a deal to just move on from him? I think it might be worth it. Clear up some cap space for the Eagles. Give them more flexibility. Howie Roseman is great with managing money. I think that they can absorb losing A.J. Brown and figuring this thing out. There are games where they don't throw him the ball and they still win. So I think that they'd be okay. Also, John Lean carrying the chat right now. I wanted him gone before last year. He was great. Still probably could be, but I've had enough. That's, I think, the sentiment for most Eagles fans. I think all the complaining last year while the team is winning that he's not getting the ball, he needs to have some huge powwow with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. Man, I'll tell you one thing. If I was Jalen Hurts, I would be so done with this guy. Like, we're winning all these games. We're dominating opponents. And he's like, oh, I need a meeting immediately to address the concerns about the... I'd be like, man, get out of my effing face, bro. Like, I'd be like, I'm so done with you. We're winning. What are you complaining about? What do you want? It's like you ever see I love the memes of the Bad Bunny meme where he wins his Grammy for Album of the Year, and everyone's like celebrating around him. He's just like, and you can tell he's just like overcome with emotion, and that's how he responded. But it almost seems like he's like upset or PO'd, and now people use that for other different things. I feel like that had to be Jalen Hurts when he saw AJ Brown come up on his phone as the team is like 7-1 or whatever they were, or see the AJ Brown text, we need to talk. He's probably he's that Bad Bunny meme where he's just like, oh, bro, what am I doing, bro? What could this guy possibly want? What could he possibly be complaining about with a freaking best team in the NFL? What does he want? What does he want now? Like, and I don't think I'm a Jalen Hurts apologist. Like, I did have him ranked in my top 10 quarterbacks coming off a season where he definitely had a down year. No question about that. But this guy, he must be... I would hate playing with this guy. If I was his quarterback, I would hate this guy. Because nothing is good enough. You can throw the ball to him a million times and then we lose. And then he's happy, but now we're losing and I'm throwing more interceptions. Then I say, okay, I'm going to try to run the offense the way it's supposed to be run, where I'm balancing targets around everywhere and we're winning games. And then he's still freaking out. It's like, you can't win either way. John Lee saying Steelers could use him. So John, you may be better at this than I. I'm rare to ask like a particular person in the chat, but John Lee's the man. He's been following this live stream almost every day, so I appreciate you, John. Would the Eagles trade with the Steelers in any significant way? I mean, I also have lived in Pennsylvania. I have family that's in Pennsylvania, so it's not like I'm totally divorced from like the I guess what makes the Steelers-Eagles dynamic in the state. But I'm still a newbie. I'm still at heart, as I rep the Mets today, a New Yorker. So my instinct is that they wouldn't give a guy like AJ Brown to the Steelers. Like, it's almost like trading within the division. It's not as important a rivalry. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying in terms of like the parameters, like, okay, who will we never make a significant trade with? All the teams in the division, and then I feel like the next one would probably be like the Steelers. So that would be the one thing I would ask you. I don't know. Maybe you being an Eagle fan, you'd have a better feel for that than I would. Maybe like you're so done with him that you don't even care, and that could be the case. And maybe it's a case by case basis where if you feel like a guy you don't even care if he has success somewhere else, you rather just want it off your team. Then that's a one thing. But that was one thing I thought about was is this a player that you would actually trade to the Steelers? It is ironic that the Tennessee Titans have the most cap space, and definitely could use wide receivers. Like, well, what have they been missing? Well, how did they get to this point where they have all this cap space and they don't have a wide receiver number one? How did that happen? It's kind of what happens when you trade your number one wide receiver and then go into the tank. Having a lot of money to spend. So that'd be kind of funny. Somehow you got traded back to the Titans. I don't think the Titans are making a trade for him, not for no first-round pick, because they're a team that could be a perennial number one overall pick kind of team, it seems like. So they're probably not in the ballpark of trading a first, but maybe they'll trade a second in theory, which would be a high-end second from the Titans. But again, I assume he'd rather, I don't know, he'd rather retire from football than go back to Tennessee. Is what my assumption would be. But I don't know. That's something that we'd have to find out. So we'll see. This is going to be a storyline throughout the whole offseason, or as long as he's on the Eagles. If I had to bet today, I'm going to say he's not going to be on the Eagles. I think that they're smart enough to realize this thing has to end. And I think behind closed doors, and it's tough because A.J. Brown presents himself at times like somebody who's like, what do you mean there's something wrong? There's nothing wrong at all. I'm not doing anything. I'm not being a malcontent. I'm happy here. But then he's acting like someone who's not. So it makes it hard. Like, he definitely could be the guy that's super passive aggressive and doesn't actually tell people what he wants. I get the impression that he probably told Philadelphia, I'm out. Get me out of here. And he's trying his best to be on his best behavior from now until whenever a trade happens to not cause any more waves and issues, because he still has to live in the city for now. Well, he doesn't have to. He's a millionaire. But in theory, he probably has to show up in Philadelphia at some point during this spring and summer. He still has to live his life, and he probably don't want Philadelphia fans coming up and egging his house like they did to Kevin Patullo. So to not make life more hell, I would assume he would maybe say, hey, I went out. I'm not going to cause any waves, though he went to Gronk and did a wink to him and Edelman. But I'm not going to cause waves. I'm not going to cause any issues. You can say that I want to be here, and that's fine. But just get me out of here. Like, the way that season ended with him and those drops and him not talking to the media at all. And, I wasn't at Super Bowl Radio Row this year. And I was stuck following the stuff that was happening out of the Super Bowl week. But it was interesting to not be there and not feel like you're so, like, when you're in the Super Bowl Radio Row week, you feel like inundated with everything that's happening at Super Bowl week. When it's funny because when I'm doing shows here, and because consuming media here, I realized there's really a lot more happening. Like, this Super Bowl week kind of got overshadowed by the NBA trade deadline and everything that was going on. So maybe I wasn't quite as inundated with what was happening at Super Bowl week. But it seemed, A.J. Brown again said during the thing that he was happy with Philadelphia is what I saw he said. I didn't really hear much about, like, did anyone even ask him about what happened at the end of the season? Where he has those drops and then he just bails. He doesn't talk to the media. Like, we hadn't heard from him, I think, since the last game before he was on Radio Row. I heard no commentary on that, so I assume whatever he said wasn't that important or wasn't that interesting. But I would still like to know what he said, because that was kind of crazy. You spend all season yelling about you not getting the ball and how we can't win if I don't get the ball, and they throw you the ball in the clutch and you're dropping it left and right, and you lose a game with the other team basically has no more offensive players left. That was embarrassing. And you just dip, don't take accountability for your terrible play. It seems like a weird way for that season to end. That we really got no answers from him. John Lee, thank you for answering my question. He said, yeah, Steelers are a weird rivalry to the Eagles. Barely play, but both fans that can be mouthy. They've traded together previously. I don't think any big trades. Last one was Kenny Pickett. I forgot Kenny Pickett. That's true. Kenny Pickett did get traded. Obviously he would trade there to be a backup, but he was their starting quarterback and then was traded to the Eagles, and they seemed to have no fear that he would be a problem for them. So maybe that's the deal where like they will trade, certain guys, but not necessarily just anybody. I don't know if you're trading AJ Brown. He's somebody that's going to start for the Steelers next year, like and like be an impact player. Will he be a malcontent? Will he be a problem? Seeing him with Aaron Rodgers would be hella funny because I feel like that would not end well probably. But I would assume the Eagles would want to send that kind of talent to a place like what's it called? Pittsburgh, considering the rivalry. It's 40 days, 40 nights. Your boy EJ Stewart here, rocking live multiple spots, including Instagram, New Generation Media, also Instagram Action EJ. Sorry, also on YouTube, New Generation Media, and on X EJ_Stewart. I believe I'm on Instagram, right? I did not hit Instagram, so my bad. I wasn't live on Instagram. I'm going live now. Now I'm live on Instagram. Shout out to the folks on Instagram. Again, 40 days, 40 nights rocking YouTube this morning. I see I got some really intense sun coming in, so just give me 1 second. I'm actually going to see if I can just like adjust my blinds maybe so that I don't have to deal with this. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to cover myself for a second and then come back here. Where can I find this? There you are. There you are. Hey, hold on 1 second. Much better. Yeah, I was like, oh, those blinds are coming in strong. The sun has not been that aggressive in a while because it's been cold and dreary and ugly here in New York. So I was like, I had the blinds the blinds haven't really mattered in a couple of days, so I haven't had to worry about them because it's been days, even weeks, even because it's been so cold, so dreary, so not bright. As we move closer to spring, I was like, wow, this sun's coming in strong. So I had to adjust the blinds where I normally set them up. Normally, it doesn't even matter. As long as they're closed, they're fine. But I was like, I feel like I'm playing an afternoon game in Milwaukee. They have some pretty gnarly shadows. So I was like, I feel like I'm playing a baseball game. Can EJ get through the stream? Getting through the shadows. Can he see through the shadows and see the pitch? Anyway. Again, it's 40 days, 40 nights. Your boy EJ Stewart. Shout out to Lita. Yeah, that was Lita in the background. I also ran quickly to get a tissue because you guys hear I'm still very nasally today. But shout out to Lita. You guys got to see her yesterday. Update on Lita, by the way. She has now flipped. She's turned heel. I showed you guys, which may still be here. I may be able to show you. I think this is it. Yeah. So I showed you guys this video yesterday. So I'll play again. There it is. It doesn't want to play for some reason. But that was Lita in the snow. I don't know why it's not playing. But that was Lita yesterday. Or 2 nights ago, actually. Where she was frolicking in the snow. She seemed to be having the best old time. Right? I know that video is not actually playing. Let me see if I can try to play it one more time. Hold on. There you go. Now you're watching it. All right. That was Lita, right? Frolicking in the snow. Having a good old time. Andrea yesterday, by the way, also said that we have to have Lita make a live appearance before 40 days and 40 nights ends, which we will make happen. We will definitely make that happen. We just got to find a way to get her to be comfortable with me because she doesn't like being picked up. She is smaller than she looks. I just got smaller there, but if you see like a lot of her pictures, you would think, oh, like she's a regular sized dog. She's actually like what I would call a medium dog. So the problem, though, is she turned heel on us yesterday because she typically loves the snow, as you guys can see. She, like, jumping in it, running in it. There's a point where she put her entire face and body into the snow earlier on this walk I had on Sunday night. So you would think, okay, Lita should be fine. Like, she loves the snow. Getting her to walk seems to be okay. But yesterday's snowstorm was so bad. And multiple spots in the city, I think we got more than 20 inches of snow. It was so bad that what was happening was so blustery because the wind was so strong that from the buildings from where I live, big, huge globs of snow were randomly like flying off the top of these buildings and like hitting the ground. I guess to Lita, these seemed like bombs. Like she was very, very annoyed and like very concerned and scared, legitimately scared of this. And now she doesn't want to walk. So I then walked her yesterday afternoon. It was a disaster. She got hit with one of these things, by the way. So I was like, oh, don't worry, it's gonna be okay. And then like, bam, one of these things smashes into me and Lita, and she's like, I've had enough. Get me the hell home. I'm not walking anymore. So she's now being very irritable when it comes to going on these walks because she's afraid that she's gonna be hit by a random huge glob of snow. To which I say, screw you, Mother Nature. You lost a good one. You had someone in Lita who was just all in on snow, loved snowstorms, loved being out there in the blizzard, and just had to get too much dip on your chip. You had to say, no, let's not make this a normal snowstorm. Let's make this the biggest snowstorm we've had in 10 years. Let's add on, windy conditions to make this a blizzard. And let's make this accumulation so bad that in New York City, when the snow accumulates in large buildings, large trees, with the wind blustering, those globs can just randomly fly off. And they are big, and they're not like insignificant when they hit you. So Lita was already scared of them. Then she got hit by one. And she's like, I've had enough. So apparently this morning was an issue, even though it's not snowing, as you guys can see. It's very bright and very sunny. Even though it's not snowing, even though we're done with that, she now is turned on the snow. She's turned heel. She's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to walk. I'm not doing anything. Apparently, it took Andrea. I mean, she was out there for it seemed like 45 minutes. I was like, where the hell is Andrea? Usually, this is a walk we do in the morning. That's usually 20 minutes tops. So, she turned on the snow. She's had enough. And it's really sad because Lita has many cute traits. Her interactions with snow is definitely in the top 4 or 5 of the cute traits that Lita has. So to see that go away pisses me off. So again, shame on you, Mother Nature, for getting too much dip on your chip and thinking I'm just gonna snow on New York City at a level that we haven't seen in decades. And then you just ruined a fan. You had a fan of yours. Lita, she doesn't like the rain. She doesn't like big winds, but she does love snow, and now she doesn't because of you guys. So congrats, jerk. Rod DeRay in the chat. Bro, that's not heel behavior. It seems like a totally fair reaction from our girl. Hashtag Team Lita. It's maybe not heel behavior in terms of understanding the plight of why she feels this way. It is heel behavior to me and Andrea. Because as people who are her parents who need her to walk so that she can use the restroom and not be sitting around in the apartment holding it all day, at her being conformative in terms of actually completing the walk, and not being, coachable in that word, if we're going to do a sports analogy, that part of it is a heel turn. That part is a heel turn for us. Because it's very, you never know how dogs are going to react to any kind of weather situations. Most dogs hate thunderstorms. She hates thunderstorms as well. He hates rain. So, I didn't know what was going to happen when the snow happened. She, again, she's one of the dogs who loves snow. So it made it easy where okay, this may be tough for me to walk in the snow, but at least I won't have to have an issue with Lita. I can get her in, get her out, and we'll be fine. Now that's not the case. So like I said, maybe not a heel behavior in terms of just overall, but she's turned heel on us to make this now a thing. Like the fact that this snow is going nowhere. As if you guys have lived in the Northeast or you guys have lived in New York City, you would know, and I talked about it on the show, we've had poop mountains for a month. Where we had mountains of snow that would not melt because it was too cold, and then dogs would poop on it because people don't pick up after their dogs. So this snow is going nowhere. So Lita's going to be this concerned about snow that's hanging on buildings or hanging on trees, and this is going to be a thing for the next week or two. That is a heel turn for me. So that's what I'm saying when I say Lita absolutely is displaying heel behavior. Not necessarily because of why she's upset. Why she's upset, I understand. If I was a small dog that's only weighs about 30 pounds and I got hit with a glob of snow coming out of nowhere and there's no way for me to know when it's coming or where it's coming from, yeah, I'd be scared too. I would get it. But from my standpoint and my selfish reasons, she has turned heel on me that now when I have to walk her later today, I know this is going to be a pain in the ass. A 40-minute walk this morning. It took Andrea 40 minutes. They walk around the block. Maybe they'll go across the street every now and then. 40 minutes. That's heel behavior. I'm sorry. It's 40 days, 40 nights. It's your boy, EJ Stewart. Spurs had a huge win last night. Really impressive win. They go into Detroit. Jalen Duren's back, obviously, so they don't have Beef Stew. And there was a little scuffle in this game. And the announcers were funny being like, thank God Beef Stew isn't here because we know this would turn into something way worse. But Spurs kind of dominated this game. They were up double digits most of this game. They did an excellent job on Cade Cunningham, who really couldn't find the shot. I think he ended up being, I want to say, 5 for 26 or something like that. He had a terrible shooting night. Spurs win this one 114-103. This was, I think, an important game for both teams. Yes, 5 for 26 for Cade Cunningham. This was an important game, I thought, for both teams because these are kind of, I don't say mirror image of each other, but these are two teams that like were average to below average teams from last season, but showed a lot of promise that have entered the chat in a major way, being like, we have arrived and we are here to take over in both of their conferences. So I was curious to see, okay, these teams match up against each other. Like, who's going to really kind of show up in a major way here? This was a huge game, and the Pistons don't seem to shy away from these big games. Like, when they've had these marquee matchups against the Knicks and some of these other top teams in the East and the Western Conference, they showed up pretty well. Cade shooting the way he was shooting last night, they had no shot. And this, again, you got to credit the Spurs defense. The Spurs, that's a tough matchup for the Pistons because the Spurs, like, what makes Cade so difficult is this guy. I was thinking about it walking Lita the other day, ironically. I always tell you guys that my profound sports takes often come from times when I am walking Lita or when I'm in the shower. So I was walking, Lita the other day, and I was thinking about Cade Cunningham. I was like, who does Cade Cunningham remind me of? Like, who is he? Then I said, oh, like, imagine if Penny Hardaway was super aggressive offensively. Like, that's essentially Cade Cunningham. Like, imagine Penny Hardaway. Like, Penny Hardaway was a great player and a star, but Penny Hardaway was even more of a true natural point guard. He could score. He could drop 40 on you. But, like, imagine if Penny Hardaway was always looking for his shot. And, like, ran in this kind of NBA system where everything was going through him and there was no Shaq. That is essentially who Cade Cunningham is, which is a very scary, dangerous player in terms of how dominant he can be. But this is a good matchup because I think what makes him hard to guard is because who do you put on him? Are you going to get mismatched and put your small forward or shooting guard on him? He's 6'7". So are you going to put a small forward on him and who's not used to guarding a point guard and guarding on the ball as a point of attack of the defender? Are you going to put your point guard on him who's a lot shorter, who he can take advantage of? He's a tough cover. And the Spurs, though, make for a good matchup because they have a ton of guards who are all 6'4", 6'5". Darren Fox, 6'4", Stephen Castle, 6'6", Dylan Harper, 6'5". Like, they got a bunch of guys who, from a physical standpoint, they're not going to see someone like Cade Cunningham and feel like, oh my God, how am I guarding this 6'7" point guard? Like, these are the guys that they probably feel more comfortable guarding, quite frankly, than some of these little small guys they're forced to guard most of the time. So, and the fact that they can throw these guys at you at waves. I mean, Stephen Castle is a phenomenal defensive player for a young player in this league. So, the fact that you can hit him with a bunch of guys, and they still got your other guys that could guard him in a pinch. You can switch a Keldon Johnson on him. You can switch a Harrison Barnes on him for a possession. You can switch a Carter Bryant on him. Like, and then Victor. And he's in the paint. He's directing traffic. So, this is not a team. If there was an NBA Finals matchup, and it sounds crazy to say, but you have to think of this as a preview of the NBA Finals potentially. Both of these teams have 41 and 42 wins. These are two of the best teams in the NBA, which is why this was a marquee matchup. If these teams played in the postseason, I would definitely take the Spurs because I think that this is one of the teams that matches up. Besides the Thunder, ironically, because the Thunder are the same, they're one of the teams that matches up great with the Pistons. Again, the Thunder, you could play Dort, you could play obviously Caruso, Case and Wallace. They have a lot of, again, bigger, stronger guards that will be up to the challenge of having to cover someone like Cade Cunningham. I think that they will be in much better shape than the Knicks are. Where Knicks are saying, hey, we have to take OG Anunoby, who did a good job on him in the playoffs last year. But we got to take OG, make him our point of attack defender, which kind of eliminates him from being an on-the-ball rover and a guy who can cause havoc off the ball. Off the ball rover and being a guy who can cause havoc off the ball. And it puts him in a position where now he's, again, a little fish out of water guarding a guy who's bringing the ball up the court as often as Cade is. So this is a tough matchup, and it looked like a tough matchup. I thought the Spurs pretty much got what they wanted offensively as well. They shot 45% from three. They made 18 threes. These were very good looks as well. So this was a pretty, a thorough victory for the Spurs. They didn't blow these guys out, but it was definitely a great game for a lot of guys. Devin Vassell was on fire last night. He had 28 points, 10 for 14 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3 in this one. Julian Champagny, who's also shot at St. John's, also turned into a really good NBA player. He had 5 threes in this game. He had 17 points. Balanced attack overall. Victor ended up with 21 points and 17 rebounds and 6 blocks. A great game for the Spurs. And then, again, I'm asking the question, like, which one of these teams is more legitimate as a title contender, and can the Spurs win it all? Because we're now deep into the season, and I think we got to have real questions about the Spurs. I'll say this. I feel like the Spurs are going to win a championship within the next 3 or 4 years, is the feeling I have when I watch them play every night. It just feels like they're next up. Just like the Thunder felt like they were next up a couple years ago, and they were number 1 seed in the West, but nobody really believed them in the playoffs, and they ran into Luka Magic, and they lost the second round of the playoffs. But even the year before, they started to show signs that they were turning the corner. I think last year was the signs the Spurs showed that they were turning the corner. This year is that Thunder year where maybe they have a gaudy record, but maybe they don't get to the conference finals. I can see that happening. I think the next year is the year where they become the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is going to make this very fun, because I think now you're going to have the Thunder and the Spurs doing the Spider-Man meme where you're like, hey, you guys developed just like we did. And that's going to be, I think maybe that could be the defining rivalry of this NBA moving forward. I think we've been trying to find that, like, who is the defining rivalry for the NBA? Like the Cavs and the Warriors were for all those years. They matched up in the finals. And in so many of the other great rivalries we've had, Heat, Celtics. What's the next one? I think Thunder Spurs is probably what you're looking at. I don't think the Spurs, barring Victor Wembanyama staying healthy, which this year he's been relatively healthy, so that's been awesome. This feels like the one. So if I had to pick a team and say who I think has a better shot of getting to the finals this year, it's so hard because the Pistons, it becomes like how much confidence do you have that the Spurs, if they actually see the Thunder in the playoff series, could beat them? And can they get there? Can they get to see the Thunder in the finals? By the way, they're only 2.5 games back behind the Thunder for the number 1 seed in the West. So this West is not sealed up. There was a time maybe it felt that way, but the Spurs, they've won 9 games in a row. The Thunder have kind of been sputtering a little bit. So now they're right in the not in the driver's seat, but they're right in the passenger seat of maybe being able to take over this, conference. And that would be, I think, huge for them if they can find a way to get the number 1 seed. Because I think you want to try to avoid playing a 3 seed in the second round if you're the Nuggets, if you're the Spurs rather. My question becomes, who do you want to play if you're the Spurs in the second round matchup? They get number 1 seed there. I mean, I think almost regardless of what happens, they're gonna make it past first round of the playoffs. I'm there with the third Spurs at this point. But what happens with these 3 through 6 is going to be very fascinating to me, because 3 through 6 you got the Rockets, who they won last night. They blew out the Jazz. I watched that game as well. Jabari Smith had a great game last night. Denver Nuggets then at 4, Lakers at 5. We know their issues, and then the T-Wolves at 6. I think that, if you're Spurs, you get the number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference. That is huge. Obviously, you get home field advantage throughout the West. And this win was important even against talking about the Detroit Pistons, because again, now we're in February, entering March. You do have to have real conversations about home court advantage, tiebreakers, even with teams in another league. When you're as high as the Spurs are in the standings, these are real conversations you have to have. So that win was crucial as well if you're even looking at maybe trying to have the best record in the NBA. But if you're the Spurs, I would think you want to avoid a second round matchup with the Nuggets. That's my instinct and hunch. That you want to, you don't want to obviously see the Thunder in the second round, but you're gonna have to face them at some point. But I think you say, what is the team that could knock us out early that would give us probably the most disappointing end to the season? I would assume it would be a matchup with the Nuggets in the second round, where you got to deal with Nikola Jokic, who is still, a Grizzly Bear and still one of the best, if not the best player in the NBA. And I think he would probably cause Victor Wembanyama a lot of problems in terms of foul trouble, and they're obviously battle tested. They have a point guard in Jamal Murray who's a big shot maker. That's the team that's won a title. I think that would probably be the one team I'd say, hey, this is the team we got to try to avoid. This is the team that we don't want any smoke with. So I would think the Spurs would be one of those teams there. I know my screen is frozen, so I can't actually go up and down, but that's fine. That's all I need to show you right now in terms of where we're at. So I think the Nuggets would be a team that I would probably be most being like, I don't want to see them at this point in time. To be honest, though, like all these other teams, I think the Spurs can beat all these teams. I think the Spurs can beat the Rockets. I think the Spurs can beat the Lakers. And I think the Spurs can beat the Timberwolves. So there was a time where I was unsure if the Spurs were anything more than a second round exit, even with their gaudy record. Now I feel like the Nuggets will be a tough series. I'd probably lean Nuggets, but most of those other teams in that grouping I would be fine with. So that also becomes a conversation late in the season, where if you are fighting for that number one seed, and I think they're going to just go for it, but I wonder if you play some games with that. Do you say, you know what, in a second round matchup, we're okay if it's Rockets or T-Wolves. Like I think that they would be set up great in those matchups. Do you want to get the one seed and potentially have to face the Nuggets? That would be a little more of a challenge, I think. And when you think about the Pistons and just where they are, I mean, again, I'll bring it real quick because I knew it froze, so I'll bring it back. Look at the Pistons and where they are. I mean, it's only one loss. They're still playing great ball. I think that they're almost a lock to be the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. So right now, it's just about, what I'm curious with them is, who ends up being the 4 seed and 5 seed in this situation? I mean, the 5 seed will probably be Toronto. But who ends up being the 4 in this? Who do they end up facing in the second round of the playoffs? Because if it's the Cavs, it's a tough matchup, I think, for them. K will be willing to do whatever he wants against that team because they don't have anybody, I think, to guard him. Which is probably why I would lean Pistons. And, the Cavs kind of have a glass jaw when it comes to the playoffs. But sometimes playoff basketball is one of the things where you have a glass jaw until you don't. Like, people thought Dirk had a glass jaw until he didn't. Every team, people thought Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets had a glass jaw until they didn't. There's some guys that always do. Like, for example, James Harden being on the Cavs. There are some teams that do, like the Los Angeles Clippers. The Cavs feel like that, but sometimes you just have a glass jaw until you don't, and you beat somebody that you're not expected to. That matchup would worry me a little bit if I'm the Pistons. Because I think Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, I think Donovan Mitchell particularly, I don't think he would shy away or be in any way concerned about the physicality of the Pistons and his ability to attack the basket, attack the paint. And the Pistons do have size. Now, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen sometimes are like, the theory of them is sometimes better than the actual production. You think, we got 2 7-footers on our front line. And that are great at blocking shots and being rim protectors and overall good defenders. We should be able to just lock everybody up. And it just doesn't. And sometimes it works great. There's some times where, especially in the playoffs, where those guys disappear or they're literally not available. That's another big thing too. Are these guys going to be available by the time we get to the playoffs? I don't know. But if I'm the Pistons, I speak this as I'm the Pistons, even though right now I don't have love for the Pistons as a Knicks fan. But I would probably say the team I'd run at least want to face in the playoffs right now is probably Cleveland. Because Boston is short-handed. I think from a talent standpoint, they probably match up best with Boston in terms of we have more talent than them. And then it's probably the Knicks probably have the most talent of all these teams, but they feel comfortable against the Knicks. Whether they should feel comfortable is another story, but that's how they feel. They feel like they should have won last year. They've been dominating them this postseason, this regular season, so they feel like they can handle the Knicks. And I think they want the matchup with the Knicks. The Cavs are the team where there's kind of a little bit of a, who knows what that matchup looks like. And they have the kind of size and physicality, in theory, in the front court that would make it, you would think, harder for the Pistons to do their bullying bad boy antics against. Now, the flip side is, I think the Celtics and the Knicks are better equipped to guard Cade Cunningham than the Cavs are. That's the other flip side. Is I legitimately have no idea who the Cavs put on Cade Cunningham. I think Cade would have a huge playoff series, but it doesn't mean you win. Like, that's the thing. It's like Cade could have a monster series. It doesn't mean you win the series at all. Like, the Knicks have had series where Jalen just played great and they've lost. So if you're the Cavs, what does that matchup look like for you in terms of who you're putting on Cade? Because it's not going to be Donovan Mitchell and it's not going to be James Harden. That's for damn sure. So is there somebody off the bench that's going to play a lot more minutes? Because Dean Wade's their starting. He's their starting small forward. It's not going to be Dean Wade. I mean, it might be Jalen Tyson, their young guy who's come up and had a great season for them this year. Like, that part of it is scary, I think, for the Pistons. And maybe that's why Pistons fans wouldn't be too concerned with them either. I just think the Harden-Mitchell combination with the size in their front court, I think, would make them dangerous. I can't wait for these playoffs. That's one thing I can say for certain. I think this is going to be an awesome postseason. I think in both conferences. Again, we heard all the stuff about, oh, East is whack, East is whatever. I think maybe the East, maybe the first round is not as great, but I think when you get to the second round of the playoffs, when we get those top 4 teams in the East, and I assume we will see Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, and Cavs, and it could be a Jason Tatum that's returned to that point in time, that's going to be a war. That's going to be an absolute war. That's going to be a ton of fun. The Western Conference is going to be fun from the first round on. But the Eastern Conference is also going to be great. I can't wait for these playoffs. Great win last night by the Spurs. And what we have to now acknowledge is a potential postseason preview and a championship preview. Finals preview. Pistons and Spurs. Who would have thought that before the season? Before the season. There's going to be a February game. It's going to be Spurs traveling to Detroit in a finals preview. You'd be like, what? That's the way the season has gone. I was surprised when I saw these teams were playing. I was like, ooh, I got to watch this game. I assumed I needed League Pass. I thought there was no shot this was on national TV. And maybe that was naive to think that they wouldn't have Victor on as much as they can. But I didn't think that a road trip to the Pistons was going to be, we got to make sure we get that one on the schedule. I was a little surprised by that. I was also surprised the Jazz were on this late in the season, too. The Jazz, it was a doubleheader. So the Jazz played the Rockets in the second half of the doubleheader. I'm like, league officers didn't know Danny Ainge is tanking. They should have known that. They should have known that before the season. We knew that the season was going to be for the Utah Jazz. So I didn't know why that game was on. That game seemed even more bizarre than Rockets versus Jazz. But I was surprised this was on. I was like, is this a flex? Did they flex this game into this spot? Because this is a hell of a game to have on a Monday night here. They did it, man. Great foresight by the NBA to have that as a national television game on Peacock last night. Carlos Mendoza, he's the manager of the New York Mets, and he's taking ownership for how last season went and what I thought was a really productive conversation it seemed like he had with The Athletic, where he essentially said that he fell short when it came to managing the team last year and what the team needed. And a lot of it came down to the communication, which I thought was interesting in the article as well. Shout out to The Athletic. They mentioned that people had talked about how his lack of communication last year was somewhat of a problem. He tried to explain it away, and we'll read some quotes from Mendy here, but Mendy saying that essentially, he needs to be elite at communicating last year and is supposed to letting things kind of just happen, which is kind of how the season felt. Like him saying that, it kind of how the vibe I got. The vibe I got was that the Mets were kind of letting this happen to them. They weren't doing anything. They weren't playing with any urgency. And Mendoza, maybe because of the success they had in 24, his approach to it was more to kind of just let things play out and assume essentially that they were going to get out of this funk. And of course, they never did. So here was Mendy talking about last year. Says here, quote, "I take pride in being a good communicator. I feel like I fell short," he told The Athletic. "It's not that I didn't talk to the players. To be really good at what we do, you have to communicate at an elite level. I don't think I did last year at times. That's the biggest thing for me." So it's pretty revealing quote right there. This is also from Mendoza, who said this. You look back at whether it's the coaching staff, the medical staff, explaining to a role to a player a little bit better. It's not that I didn't do it, but when you have high standards and high expectations, that's the first thing that comes to mind. So this was a thing that was then again in the article in the Athletic was referenced as this was something that people around the Mets also felt like he fell short of last year, and was kind of become maybe because we don't think of managers being as important as we used to anymore, and like Mendoza seems to be more cuffed in the cloth of the new age managers that are kind of just like, talking heads and mouthpieces for the front office. And a lot of the agency that managers maybe had with how they dealt with players and dealt with teams and lineups and bullpen decisions. A lot of those decisions have been taken away from managers. And now the front offices are essentially making those decisions. They're telling the manager, this is who you bring in this situation. This is who the line you go with tomorrow. Like a lot of that is, analytics-based front offices that are leading the charge with that. So, I think because we have David Stearns here as the general manager, and I just think the Mets, it seems to be embracing this new age baseball way of thinking, and now Buck Showalter's gone. We know Buck Showalter's running the show when he's the guy that's in charge, right? Mendoza, first time on the job, used to be a bench coach. I think people think that. How much power does he really have? So it is interesting to come into the season, which I think is one of the most under talked about stories that are major storylines for this upcoming baseball season in New York City. Mendoza's in a contract year. He has an option for 2027 that has not been picked up, and the Mets, as of right now, do not have a manager for a contract next year. They can bring back Mendoza, but they also just let him walk. And I went completely kind of like, I do shows on the Fan. I listen to the Fan. I feel like we haven't really talked about that. Like the Mets could very well be looking for a manager next year, and it makes me kind of wonder what are the expectations. Like I think you saw Steve Cohen, the owner, say that table stakes are the playoffs. So you would think, okay, Mendoza obviously, in order to keep his job, he has to make the playoffs. But I'm personally curious whether if that's enough. Like, I kind of wonder if the Mets already kind of have their eye on wanting to have someone else be the manager, and unless he wins a championship, they're going to move on with him anyway. Because I have a manager and going into a lame duck year with a team that has championship aspirations is like borderline like unheard of in sports. Like, you don't have coaches. They don't do that to coaches, really. I will say you see it a little bit more in baseball than you will in any other sport. Like, I feel like you've seen it with like Joe Torre. You've seen it with certain managers here in New York. Joe Girardi, where they go into a contract year and you're like, are we going to sign this guy? And they kind of just let it play out. In basketball and football, that's non-existent. That will never happen. I don't know why. I maybe feel like one of those things that baseball really hasn't caught up to that yet. Hey, man, like if you don't sign him, the team is much more likely to quit on him because they don't think he's going to be back next year. But whatever. But that seems to be definitely something that you wouldn't invite, that a coach in a pressure-packed year who's now entering a full true lame duck. Not this year and then next year's his last year. Like Steve Cohen's like, I'm not paying this guy a cent next year if we don't accomplish what we want. And if I got to fire him, he's just not coming back. I'm not committing any more years to him. Which it puts a lot of pressure on Mendoza and this team, and it makes you wonder how much do the Mets hold him accountable for how that situation went last year. And he didn't do a good job. I mean, all the right buttons he seen to press, whether that was him or front office, who knows, but the right buttons he seemed to press when it came to picking the lineups, making the bullpen decision that he made during that season. When the Mets bullpen that season wasn't that great either, but he seemed to piece it together in a way, and he got, Reed Garrett giving him good outings and Ryan Stanek giving him good outings. This is all 24. Like, just to find a way to get to Diaz, and then Diaz, as he started to feel his way through the season, got better and better. By the postseason, he was pretty much nails. And then last year, he became a superhuman again. Like, that magic that he had in 24 seemed to be gone in 25. It seemed like every decision he made was the wrong one. It seemed like every bullpen decision he made was the wrong one. He didn't really tweak with the lineup that much, but he just had trouble finding guys who could consistently perform for him outside those first four guys in the lineup. if it wasn't Lindor, Soto, Alonso, or Nimmo, you were essentially almost getting no production. At least not consistently. And Beatty. But besides those guys, you were essentially getting no production, and it was like maybe you'll get a couple of good games from Tyrone Taylor here, a couple of good games from Mark Vientos there, but nothing of consistency. And he just couldn't find the answers. And the fact that he's coming into this year in a full contract year tells me that the Mets maybe aren't convinced that 2024 was any indication that he is a special manager and a guy that is built for this and a guy that they know for sure is the right man for this job. The fact that he's on a 3-year deal is crazy. Like, I'm still stuck. Like, this is only his third year here. Last year was his second year. His first year, he took the team to the NLCS. Second year, you missed the playoffs. Third year is do or die. You're in a contract year. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're fired. To be fair, though, I mean, those are the stakes that Mets fans have been asking for, right? Like, we've been asking for the team to take championship aspirations seriously. We've been asking for the team to take themselves being a big marketing team seriously. So, this is essentially what Yankee fans have been asking for their fans to do, or to their team to do, with Aaron Boone, and Aaron Boone seems like he's on essentially a lifetime deal. I don't know what he has to do to get fired at this point in time. Last thing as well from Mendy that I thought was interesting, he talked about how he thought the issue with the clubhouse, the only thing he did kind of want to push back on, that he thought they were overblown. He said here in The Athletic, I'll read this here. So it says here, speaking of the clubhouse, Mendoza reiterated that he plays a significant role in setting that culture, even if he doesn't believe it was a major factor in the club's finish last season. He showed trust that had worked so well through the 2024 slump didn't pay off this time around. Honestly, it was just hard because we didn't get the job done on the field. I don't know if it was one of those, we're going to be fine, we're going to be fine, we're going to be fine. Then before you know it, you're packing and going home. Again, that's part of me as a leader, got to do a better job. But he's saying there essentially like, the clubhouse wasn't the issue. On the field, we just didn't perform. And Brandon Nimmo also came out and said that the clubhouse thing was not a thing. Brandon Nimmo is no longer here. He's in Texas. Brandon Nimmo is simply a good guy. He always tries to do the right thing. He tries to play the baby face, as we say in wrestling. So it could be him trying to be, a stand-up guy and try to, downplay any talk of that there was ascension, because maybe he does have respect for the organization, does have respect for Steve Cohen. Maybe one day he wants to come back and be a Mets alum that gets, the applause in the crowd and, gets a bobblehead or something like that. Like, he may want to keep that relationship intact. Nimmo seems to be that kind of guy. But, he did get kind of traded unceremoniously, in a trade for another guy with a bad contract. It wasn't like they even traded him for like some big piece or so as part of some big package. Nimmo could have a reason to feel salty, and the fact that he didn't want to come out and say, "I'm gonna blow up the clubhouse," and say, "Oh yeah, there's some guys over there that are gonna have struggle." He didn't do that. I want to pull up the quote here from Nimmo so I can read it for you himself. But he dismissed a lot of the things that were said when it came to the captainship, all that stuff. He did this in an interview he did with The Athletic. He was traded obviously for Marcus Semien, who's not here with the Mets. One of the rumors that came out was that he was one of the players that was disappointed about the idea that Francisco Lindor could be named captain, because he had been, a guy who was a great, leader in the clubhouse, a homegrown guy, and here was Lindor, who he's not a carpetbagger. The guy signs like a 10-year contract, but he's a guy who was traded here and wasn't here from the beginning, and has had his up and downs with the Mets, and now here he is. Now he's going to be awarded the captainship. Nimmo had rejected that. He said, quote, I'll see if I can pull this up here so you can see it for yourself. So he quote, "I never felt animosity from Francisco about a captain spot," Nimmo told The Athletic. "I never felt it at all. I always told anybody that asked about it, I don't need a C on my chest to know that I have an impact on this clubhouse." And then, obviously, he spoke highly of Lindor and what he means to New York, even as he takes on a new leadership role with the Rangers. He said, "I don't think by any means does Francisco having a C or not having a C change the way that he goes about his business. Francisco was nothing but kind, nothing but an amazing teammate and an amazing leader." So all this talk about, issues with the clubhouse, it seems like that is not something that was really reflected in a lot of these guys' talk, to be honest. When you hear from Nimmo, we heard from Lindor, we've heard from Juan Soto. It makes you wonder kind of where this stuff is coming from, and I kind of wish whoever is saying it would just come on and just say it. Like, it's very weird. the whole Mets clubhouse thing being toxic and being broken or there should be some kind of issue. I just think they were losers. I hate to be like blunt about it. I just think, and like losers as a collective, not individuals. Individually, they got to the major leagues, and individually, they're stars. But sometimes as a collective, you're losers, and you just can't quite figure it out. You have spurts where you kind of show, oh, okay, maybe this is the time. Maybe they've actually figured it out. I think as a collective, they just were never going to win a championship. I think as a collective, there was just no shot that they were going to reach their goals. They weren't going to get it done. And I think sometimes that got spun into, well, there's issues because, well, maybe if they were better friends, maybe if they did have a captain, maybe if they didn't have talk about a captain, maybe if they all had the same political view. Like, I think then you start searching for things that you try to find what the issue is and why there's a problem. That feels like maybe what's happened here, where it's like, well, if the team has the talent, so why aren't they winning? Well, it must be the clubhouse. The clubhouse may be riding because they don't got the baseball character as a collective to win consistently. Like that, and that just happens. That happens to all teams. It doesn't necessarily mean that there are guys that are beefing in the locker room. Well, the guys that are pissed off or guys that want to fight or whatever. That doesn't mean the case. They could be like, oh, this guy's pulling this way. That guy's pulling that way. Oh, that guy he didn't say good morning to him. I guess that means that issue. But it's like, well, if you're losing and things aren't going well and you have people that have differences, it's just a reality that things aren't going to be, kumbaya. But every Met that has talked about this, I would love to hear from Pete Alonso if they ask him about it at some point soon too. Whatever you want to say about clubhouse is something that haven't been talked about. The only guy that said anything about the clubhouse was what's the name? The guy who I had his name in my head now, I've forgotten. The dude that always likes to fight. What's the guy's name? That's gonna drive me crazy now. Now I gotta go to the 2023 Mets to find who this guy is. But basically, he was saying that nobody worked hard. That there's a team full of loafers, and that Francisco Lindor's. Oh man, we really had to I'm glad he was on the team because he really kind of showed us. Tommy Pham. I don't know why I can remember his name for a second. No, Tommy Pham, remember he came in and he was like, these guys are a bunch of loafers. They don't work hard. They show into the ballpark late. They're not getting extra work in while we're losing. Like, they're not actually putting the work in to be a championship caliber team. And like, Lindor was coming out like, man, I'm really happy Tommy Pham was here. He kind of like reminded us what it takes to be a professional. And a lot of guys, and we probably weren't approaching things the right way. Like Lindor said, he started doing more extra batting practice, extra things. And it seemed to me like he was able to take a lot of that inspiration from Pham from 23 into his leadership style in 24. When we talked about how great a leader Lindor was for the team and how much of a star he was for the team. But that was the only time we heard about locker room issues. But even those issues weren't so much guys aren't getting along or there's some kind of beef. It was more of like guys that work hard, which again goes back to my point. Collectively, they're losers. That to me may be the only actual issue that was wrong with the Mets in 2025 and 2023. It's not that they don't like each other. It's not that they have some kind of differences. Not that someone's jealous of somebody being a captain. They might just be as a losers as a collective, and that's okay. Sometimes you gotta move on. And so I'm glad they did. I couldn't watch that team again. I couldn't come into the year trying to convince myself, oh yeah, a team with Jeff McNeil and Nimmo and Alonso and Lindor, they're gonna find a way to win a championship. I'm just tired of trying to spin myself into that. And now I don't got to spin myself into that wheel. I may be spinning myself into another wheel that may not go well. People are a little worried about Bo Bichette at third base. I'm not. I think he'll be fine there. But, there's other things that could come up potentially that could be problems. I'll wait for those. I'm not worried about what happened in the last year's moving forward and trying to figure that out anymore. I'm glad that part of it is over. So Kansas won last night. It was another huge win for the Jayhawks at the Fog. They beat Houston. But I think before the game, what was interesting was Darryn Peterson actually, for the first time, really opening up about these questions he had about his health and his concern and his character, as we have been talking about why this guy doesn't play enough. He is a superstar freshman player. You can make the case that he is the best player in college basketball for sure. Definitely make that case. And he's in a position right now where you watch Kansas and you don't know when he may pull himself out of a game and not come back. It could be 5 minutes into a game. It could be 10 minutes into a game. It could be 25 minutes. It could be 30 minutes. It could be crunch time. He will just come out and say, I can't go. Something's wrong with my leg or whatever. And he's out of the game. So it feels like at first, NBA scouts and NBA people behind closed doors and behind unnamed sources were trying to put out the word that they didn't care about this, that they were going to draft him number 1 anyway. And I think what I said was right. And I talked about this whenever I talked about this before. Maybe it was yesterday, maybe even. I think it was yesterday. When I said that, I said, look, I think I know it shouldn't matter. It should not matter what like a Stephen A. Smith or a Charles Barkley or what these people who have these mega platforms say. But I think it does. Because I think owners care. And I think it shapes narratives that then you have to answer for as a team moving forward, whether they're true or untrue. So that's the only case that matters. Not that I'm saying I'm not going to draft a guy because of what Stephen A. Smith said, because I think he's right. It's more of like, well, this has become such a big story that now, from a PR standpoint, we have to now have these questions about him and talk to him about this, see what the hell is actually going on. Is this going to continue to be a PR nightmare? So these GMs that come out early being like, oh, like, we're not worried about this. I thought that was phony baloney anyway. And it turns out it is now, because now you're seeing now people saying, not quite the lock you thought he was going to be at number 1 just a couple weeks ago, which is what I said weeks ago. I was like, I don't know how you watch this and say that I'm drafting him number 1, full stop. And I thought Kendall made a good point where he's like, if you think about the guys that had the will they or won't they play questions in college, things kind of didn't go well for them when they started playing in the NBA, namely Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons. A great example. I kind of forgot about those guys. Kyrie got hurt. But Ben Simmons, with the going to class, what's going on? He had all these weird things happening to him at LSU that we kind of just glossed over. I admittedly glossed over. I was dead wrong to gloss over that stuff. I kept saying you got the dopes to carry anything about this stuff. Just thinking in the NBA he's going to ball, which to be fair, he did initially. And then mental health or injury and a lot of other things, and now he's out of the league. Those guys that have had those questions, typically they've come up again. When you ask, are they available enough? Are they healthy enough? Do they want to play enough? Zion Williamson, like, here we are again asking these questions, and to not ask or not be concerned at all seems silly. Kendall was 100% right when he mentioned that, and this is what you're seeing now with Darryn Peterson. Now, Darryn Peterson is saying that people need to, understand that he is fully committed and that he's not in a situation where he's hoping to skirt opportunities to play, and that he does want to be a factor for the team moving forward. So here he was talking to ESPN as I bring this in here, because I did not bring it in yet, it seems like. Let's see. Did it come up? Nope. Let's try it one time. Okay, that's weird. I'm gonna just put this here then. Oh, that's weird. It doesn't wanna come over. That's so weird and annoying. I'll try one more time. If not, I'll just read the quote to you. I was trying to pull up the quote. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna try to put this here. Okay, I'm dropping it in. Yeah, it's so weird. It's like not working. Apologies for that, for technical difficulty there. But I'll read the quote to you though. So he was asked about this by ESPN. Shout out to Myron Metcalf, who I actually think is one of the more underrated reporters in sports right now. He does a phenomenal job covering college basketball. He's very plugged in, and he's watching all the games. He's very good at his job. And he had to do this pretty long piece about Darryn Peterson in Kansas and this weird season that they're on. And Darryn Peterson said, everybody's got an opinion on it, but my basketball is my life. If I could have been out there every game this year, I would have. If you would have asked me last year what were my goals for this year, I would never mention missing games. So all this kind of stuff just happened, but I've got to deal with it. Then he continued, because then they asked him, all right, like, well, what's your plan for this? I can't believe this is a question you have to ask him, but you have to ask him. Like, you have to ask him. He was later asked, like, hey, like, what is your plan for the future of this? Like, are you planning to actually play in the March Madness tournament? Are you committing to this? Like, the fact that we have to ask a guy who's currently playing college basketball, are you committed to playing March Madness, is insane. But it's a fair question, because this guy will pull a disappearing act at any moment. He said, yes, of course. I'm planning to play the rest of this way, go all out, and finish the season strong. Which again, I've never been in a situation where I've watched college basketball and I've had to ask these questions about a kid at any point in their career. So it's quite weird and quite bizarre at this point. Again, Kansas did win last night. He did play. There didn't seem to be any hijinks about him. He didn't play that great, but that was a game where, again, I think the Fog kind of won. Kansas' defense in this game was phenomenal. They really did a good job on Flemings, the star guard for Houston, who also could be a top 10, maybe even top 5 pick in this upcoming draft. So this was a big win for Kansas. Kansas continues to boost their resume. Big 12. We talked about it when I talked to Kendall the other night. It is an absolute gauntlet. But Kansas' defense held Houston to 32% shooting. Emmanuel Sharp, their sharpshooter, no pun intended, he was 1 for 10 from the field, 1 for 6 for 3. Milos Uzan was 3 for 7. So I kind of left Kingston Flemings out there to go get it for himself, and he tried, but he was 6 for 18 and scored 16 points on those 18 attempts. So he didn't shoot the ball well. Nobody shot the ball well, really, for Houston. It was, again, a really impressive defensive performance from Kansas. But Darryn Peterson himself, he was 14 points, 5 for 14 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3. And I think, it's something that Kendall said as well that I agree with, man. Like, regardless of kind of who he becomes in terms of, like, is he a guy that, like, does he love basketball and all those questions that are legitimate. But you also kind of wonder, is he just kind of be one of those guys, like I keep saying, like, is he going to beat, like, the street clothes allegations? Like, even if he's not somebody that's like, oh, I don't want to play, or I'm not, like, holding myself out, or I'm low managing or anything like that. Is he going to be one of those guys that's like, he's going to get nicked and knacked every now and then, and he's not going to be able to play through it? And that's an aspect of sports that is probably not talked about enough, which is, like, in order to be a great player, you have to be able to play through definitely pain and sometimes injury. And there's some guys who we've seen throughout their careers that they're just not capable of doing that and not being effective. Anthony Davis being one, Vince Carter being another. And by the way, those are Hall of Fame players. Those are great players. Some of the best players of their generations. So it's like a gene. It's like we talk about the clutch gene. It's like the injury gene. Like I don't think it's toughness per se, because everybody's body is different, but it's just being able to take yourself to a place where you can overcome some of these little nicks and knacks that you deal with. Like Darryn Peterson says, if I wanted to be out there, I would have. I'm sorry, like I said before, and it's funny that AJ Devonta had that quote over the weekend after they beat Iowa State over the weekend, and he says, I would have played 40 minutes if they needed me to, which is what he did. He said, I'll play 40 minutes, I don't care. Kind of wondered if that was a shot at Darryn Peterson, but whatever. But remember I told you guys that when Arizona came to the Fog and they played Kansas, and Darryn Peterson was supposed to play, and then all of a sudden, an hour before the game, he's like, oh, I'm sick, I can't go. And I was like, I'm not saying he's not sick. I don't really question injuries. That is one of the lowest things you can do, I think. If you're hurt, whatever. But what I was trying to say was, I'm sorry, like, if I feel like AJ Devonta, you would have had to drag him off the court to tell him he's not playing in that game. Number 1 team in the country that's undefeated is coming to your house. It's on ESPN, prime time. No NBA because it's All-Star break. Or maybe it wasn't. I don't know where it was. But regardless, they had the whole show to themselves. This was the biggest event of that night. Other lottery picks coming into your building. NBA scouts all over the building. I'm sick. Again, to not even try to play was weird to me. And then we saw the game against Oklahoma State where he plays great, and then he pulls himself out after shooting a shot. I can't play, and then you're having a huge game. You're going off. You're not even going to try to get back into this game. It is weird. I can't say that it's not weird. I can't say that this is a normal thing. I don't think it is. But I think this is gonna make March Madness interesting, man. Kansas, how many games does Kansas have left? Kansas has. They can't have much because we're almost at the end of February. March is right around the corner, which means March Madness is upon us, basically. Kansas has 3 games left. And they have a huge game coming up on Saturday. They go to Arizona for a 4 p.m. Eastern time tip-off in Tucson. That is going to be, in theory, a great game. with this guy, I want to say, oh, it's a big, great game, but is he going to play? I have no idea. Because sometimes it's a hamstring pull or a groin pull. Sometimes it's cramps. It could be, now we know he could be sick and not want to play. Like, we don't know what it may be with this guy. I will say, though, someone maybe to defend him a little bit, they showed like a high school clip of him. And they were like, I'm sorry, guys, like Darryn Peterson is not moving around the court the way he moved in high school. They showed clips of him moving around in high school and how fluid he was, how athletic he was. And it did look like a more spry, more athletic, more healthy Darryn Peterson than the guy we're seeing playing college basketball, as great as he's still been. But again, that makes me go back to my point of like, again, is he going to be one of those guys that if he has some kind of injury or some kind of nick and knack, that he's not going to be able to be as effective and play through it the way other players typically try to? And will he just not try? Will he say, I'm not 100% and I have millions of dollars coming to me from the NBA, so I'd rather not try? That's going to be the question for him moving forward. And that's the question I have when it comes to whether or not I can fully buy into Darryn Peterson as the number 1 pick in the draft. I love this question from Bob. Shout out to Bob Custer, who came up in the chat a little late today. Not holding that against you, but shout out to you as always. In football, QB Sam Bradford had that great rookie season, then was seemingly hurt constantly, but it's sad. Some people are just like that. Mental toughness can't overcome some injuries. Yeah, that's why I hate going to the toughness thing, because it's not necessarily about toughness. Again, your body is your body. Whatever pain you're feeling, whatever thing you're feeling is what you're feeling. And if you can't play, you can't go, you just can't go. But there are certain athletes that I feel like, again, we've seen throughout the course of history where it's this guy, they'll fight through a broken leg or whatever to play. They'll just figure it out. Some guys some people just have really high pain thresholds. Like, I don't want to joke about myself, but like, I've had various things happen to me. And people will then say, like, yeah, I've dislocated my shoulder. I've obviously had a torn patella tendon. But I've had various things happen to me. I broke my pinky when I was in, you can see it's very crooked, right? I broke my pinky in middle school. And sometimes people say, how did you go this amount of time dealing with this kind of pain? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, you have a really high pain threshold. Although I have procedures or things like that. Like, you're dealing with this very well. And I'm like, when I tore my patella tendon, there was actually hope from my friends, with the Maggie Perloff show and the Phoenix Sport Network that were there. They're like, well, he's in a lot of pain, but he's wearing it okay, so maybe it's not as bad as it seems. And I was like, no, he has one of the worst knee injuries you could possibly have. So I've been someone, not to compare myself to a professional athlete, but I'm someone who actually has a pretty good pain threshold. Like, I don't complain too much to pain. Like, I don't know. It's just, I've always been that way. Some people are not. They just don't have high pain thresholds, and when it comes to having to play a professional sport, like, they're not the people that want to run in and say, I'm going to go and play basketball for 40 minutes. Darryn Peterson could be one of those guys where he may just be a natural person that doesn't have the highest pain threshold and can't focus if he's dealing with something, and he feels like it's a danger to put himself out there. That could be the case. I know one thing, that he's going to face a rude awakening regardless of whatever he feels. He's going to face a rude awakening when he gets to the NBA. Because the purpose of team doctors and team trainers is to get you out there on the court. It's not even to even keep you healthy or get you to 100%. That's not necessarily their goal. Their goal is to get you back on the court effective as quickly as possible, or back on the field as quickly as possible if you're playing a baseball, football, or soccer. So this whole playing patty cake and playing cutesy with like, oh, he's feeling a little pain in his leg, or he's feeling a little sick. He's going to face a lot more pushback in the NBA, I think, than he has experienced since he's been obviously playing in college. But they did get a big win, so shout out to Kansas. Kansas has been a weird team. They've had some big wins. They beat Houston. They beat Arizona. They beat BYU. They beat Texas Tech before JT Toppin got hurt. They beat Iowa State at home. Again, they've had some monster home wins. But then they had the Saturday stinker, which I think for me, in my opinion, was more fallout from all the conversations about Darryn Peterson. Like, they just looked lifeless against Cincinnati. Like, Cincinnati, they're kind of a 500 team. They're not a tournament team. They're not part of this conversation in terms of national championship or anything like that. And you come into Allen Fieldhouse and you beat them by 16 points. Like that seemed weird. Darryn Peterson played in that game. He also didn't play well in that one. I think a lot of the talk, even though they had just beat Oklahoma State, because it was a win that felt like a loss because all the conversation was negative. I kind of think that all kind of caught up to them in that Cincinnati game, and they had their worst showing of the season, arguably. And they bounced back really strong last night. Again, really tough, hard-fought win. Houston now loses 3 straight, so they're kind of in a little bit of a tailspin. I'm not that worried about Houston. We could make a bigger deal out of Houston losing than, because we've so used to seeing them. I can't remember the last time they lost 3 straight. I didn't see if they talked about it in the article. But Houston, typically they only lose 2 straight. So the fact that they lost 3 in a row is tough. But this is also a different conference that they're in than all the years they played in the American Athletic Conference. Like, that was a whole different situation where you're playing against Tulane, and you're playing against East Carolina. Like, you're getting some teams that you really should have no problem taking care of. So it makes sense to beat those teams up, and you're not going to have many big losing streaks. This apparently is the first 3-game losing streak for Houston since January 2017. That sounds about right. That would make that 9 years. That might predate Kelvin Sampson. I don't know if Kelvin Sampson's been there for 9 years. He was probably close, right around there. Maybe that's the beginning of Kelvin Sampson. But that sounds about right in terms of 9 years with what's the name? I want to bring this up real quick. I think I saw this. I'm not 100% sure. I want to make sure I got this right before I just throw this up here. But I think Kelvin Sampson kind of made a little slick remark about Kansas and Darryn Peterson either before or after the game. Where I think he said something along the lines of like, "Oh, you never know what you're getting from Kansas," yeah, that was it. Yeah, so he said, says Kansas is one of those teams where you just never know. Was his comments about Kansas. Let me see if I can play this for you guys. And I usually like to try to. I usually like try to produce a show while I'm doing the show. This is where my producer instincts come into play here. Having been, again, a long-time producer for various different shows, both on television and, of course, for Maggie and Perloff. Let me see if I can pull this for you guys real quick. So this was Kelvin Sampson after the game. And he was talking, I guess, in reference to kind of what they expect to come from Kansas every night. Because Kansas has been, like I said, a little Jekyll and Hyde. And you don't know who's going to be on the floor like that. Sometimes you don't know who's going to be on the floor within a game. And trust me, if you're a college basketball coach, is someone as in tune to strategy and locked in as Kelvin Sampson, you are aware of that. This was Kelvin Sampson talking about talking about the Kansas Jayhawks.
So Kansas is one of those teams that you just never know, but they're pretty good. But so are we. We're pretty good too. Maybe not tonight, but we're pretty good.
What do you mean by Kansas? You never know what that means.
That's what Houston's coach said. He said Kansas, you just never know.
Dang. I like that.
So at the end there, what you have is Kelvin Sampson talking about the best teams and whatever. And he's like, Kansas, you just never know with them what's going to happen, which I'll admit. And this is where sometimes I try to give some grace to like these people who cover college basketball regularly, who cover any sport regularly. You get to know these people a little bit more. Me and Kendall, we both did the American Conference Media Day 2 years in a row, so we got to talk to some of the coaches in that league, and that was that time where it's kind of crazy now. But at that time, you had Penny Hardaway, who's still there. He's dealing with a lot. But yeah, Penny Hardaway, Kelvin Sampson, Mick Cronin, and Dan Hurley. Because remember, UConn was in the American at that time. You also had like some interesting characters, like a Greg Marshall. There were some interesting characters in that league. It's kind of a fun league in hindsight, now that I think about it. But Kelvin Sampson was a lot of fun to talk to. He is like I like him. I'm sorry, I like him. Like, and I was like, oh man, this is what happened when we. Then you got people who like they do their commentary. You think, oh, you're just a shill for X, Y, and Z, and I've been that guy who's like gotten after people for being, oh, you're a shill for X, Y, and Z, and whatever. I didn't talk to Kelvin Sampson long enough to like have like a relationship with him, but I've talked to him twice. I've gotten to meet him. He's a nice guy, and he's funny, and this is very Kelvin Sampson. He kind of does and says everything with a wink and a smile, and for somebody who I think a lot of people in college basketball didn't want to like, because the way college basketball works is when you get these recruiting violations and you're deemed a quote-unquote cheater, you kind of get labeled a thing, and you kind of become a pariah, right? Kelvin Sampson's like, his actual violations, and I know now I'm defending him, were illegal at the time. Like, he was making these like incessant calls to recruits way past bedtimes, way past times of the actual, recruiting period. And that was essentially his biggest violation, was he was recruiting at times when he shouldn't have been. He was communicating with recruits when he shouldn't have been. It was against the rules. He got popped for it. So it is what it is. But like, so I think sometimes that informs. I think he's gone past that. I think a lot of other people, because he gets a lot of now very good national praise, and maybe it's an act. I don't know, but like I feel like he also gets good national press now. It took him years, but I think it's because people were like, he's a nice guy. He's a fun guy to talk to, and I got to talk to him twice, and I was like, he's one of my favorite people in sports. This guy is awesome. Like, he treated us with great respect. He's ready to speak about things about not just basketball, but just about like life, and like he really takes his job, it seems like, of being like a leader of men very seriously, particularly a leader of a lot of black men, because it's the sport of college basketball. And so maybe that's why he maybe took a little bit of he gave us a little more love than maybe some independent creators should get, because he gave us a lot of time and he was very courteous. And he had fun jokes. We asked him some weird questions about like superheroes and stuff. And Kelvin Sampson's a pretty straight shooter. And the fact that he played ball with us in that way, I was surprised by. So you heard Kelvin Sampson say there, Kansas is one of those teams where you just never know. I know we're a good team. Them, I don't really know. Which is definitely shade after they just beat you by 13 points. And I heard at the end there, that was Darryn Peterson, who I guess they alluded to him as they're walking off the podium. I guess someone said, made a comment about how, that Kansas wasn't one of those top teams potentially because you never know about them. And then Darryn Peterson's like, what do you mean by that? And then he's like, that's what he said. And Darryn Peterson's like, I don't like that. Now these teams may face it off again because we got the Big 12 tournament. If you're going to watch any conference tournament, I would say the Big East is always my favorite because the Garden and the history and everything. But the Big East as a conference isn't that great. They're kind of just waiting for the St. John's UConn showdown rematch at the Garden for the finals, which I hope is going to happen again. We would expect that to happen, considering those are by far the two best teams in the league. If you're looking for conference tournaments to get ready for and watch in a couple of weeks, here's some bulletin board material you got here. If Kansas plays Houston again, you got Kelvin Sampson talking about Kansas is one of those teams where you just never know what to expect from them. And then Darryn Peterson, the guy who is the reason why Kansas has question marks, saying, what do you mean by that? I don't like that, as he's walking off the podium. So, Big 12 is an awesome league. ESPN, one thing, ESPN and Fox, they got it right, making sure they gave them the bag when it came to. It may not be helping them much in football, because football, Big 12 is keeping them around for basketball. They've gotten some me and Kendall were talking about. Kendall talked about it on Friday. It was like, I don't know how Brett Yormark did this, but every great team is playing each other for the last 3 weeks of the season. Like, we got rid of all the Baylors and the TCU game, like all them games. It seems like those teams are playing, but they seem to only be playing each other. It's like, oh, you want to see Kansas versus Houston? You want to see Arizona versus Houston? You want to see Arizona versus Kansas? You want to see BYU versus Kansas? All those games all seem to be globbed up right as we're heading into March Madness. So whether it was luck or maybe they put their thumb on the scale, Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, it seems like he did a good job, because these have been some awesome games, man. Before we get out of here, it's been a fun show. 40 Days, 40 Nights with EJ Stewart, streaming live on, YouTube, New Generation Media. Also streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. And streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. I saw a shout out to my future mother-in-law, Carolyn, who was in the chat. Hey, Carolyn. She just gave a little wave there, and that's Carolyn. She's watching on Instagram, so you watch me Instagram live. Shout out to you, like my like Andrea's mom. wanted to give a little comment, say hi. Bob Custer in the chat. Rob was giving Bob some hell. He's commenting about how he couldn't find the program. So get with the program, Bob. Make sure you're here. I know I'm joking with you. You got the fact that you're rocking with me at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. this early. Like I appreciate you big time. So definitely nothing but love. Apparently the Vancouver Cup cannoli Thatcher Demko is hurt, and he is really a tough guy, but he's hurt a lot. Now he needs hip surgery, I believe. I know he is hurt. Those muscles by hips, and we were talking a lot about injuries and stuff. And yeah, I mean. You get injured. I hate when we talk about toughness when it comes to injuries, because that's not really what it is. You're injured. And there's some things with your body that you just can't control, you just can't get overcome. And guys will just dedicate their lives to rehab and dedicate their lives to trying to get right. And sometimes the body just fails you. And that's just a reality. And Darryn Peterson's a young guy. So the hope for me with him is he can overcome whatever this is, and this is becomes just like a blip in his story. This is not a main part of his story moving forward, but it definitely is a part of it right now. This idea that he's someone that has trouble staying healthy and has trouble being available for his team. But again, we're streaming live here. YouTube, New Generation Media, XEJ_Stewart, Instagram, ActionEJ. If you are on YouTube, do me a favor. If you can subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. That would help a ton. Also, if you can like this video and you can comment in the comment section, whether it's now or after the video is done and already up on YouTube, that also is very appreciated and helps us a ton. So if you can do those things, you can subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment in the comment section. Those things help. Also, we obviously, of course, podcast our show. Night 31 of 40 Days and 40 Nights is up. Again, day 31 not up yet because my hard drive failed, unfortunately, during yesterday's show. So I had to wait until it gets processed through YouTube before I can upload it. That usually takes a day because I'm streaming for 2 hours and it takes forever YouTube to do this. It should be done by now. So I should be able to upload that this morning. So day 31 from yesterday morning, that should be up soon. And then obviously, of course, day 32 will be up on our podcast channel. To find that, you'll just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Last thing before we get out of here, man. I am obsessed with Marvel's Ultimate Universe. So I told you guys a little bit to back up again. I had a thing last Christmas, not this past Christmas, last Christmas. You know, usually I try to give myself a gift. Like, I get all these people gifts. Shout out to my family, shout out to my friends. I think I'm a pretty good gift giver. And I always try to give myself one gift. Maybe two most, but one. Maybe it's sneakers, maybe it's a video game, maybe it's whatever, right? I want to give myself a gift. But I wanted something unique. I was like, I don't want to know if I wanted to be clothes. I don't know if I wanted to be some hats. I don't know if I wanted to be some kicks. So I wanted something different. And I wanted to also bring something back to my life, or in this case back to my life, that I felt like I kind of lost sight of. I wanted to bring something that I can kind of experience throughout the year that maybe I don't typically take part in. And one of the things I will tell you about myself is, you know, obviously you guys know how much I love superheroes, how much I love Marvel and love DC. That's a love that stems from my dad, who loved this stuff growing up. Also my uncle, who also, you know, as I'm a kid, he was collecting comics as a young man, a young kid, and a young adult as well. So, you know, those two guys are probably the biggest influences in my life in terms of my love for superheroes. My dad and my uncle. Shout out to my Uncle Rob. And with that came a love for superhero medias, and mostly it was cartoons because I was a kid. I really didn't get to read comics. I would read my uncle's comics because I would go to his house and then he would have his collection out all the time, so I would read those. But I wasn't a regular comic book reader. It wasn't until I got to around high school when, you know, I was always still invested because I still love superhero movies. Kind of started to become a thing, right? Like Spider-Man came out and X-Men came out, and I was invested in those. And because those were out, they started playing the reruns of the animated series that came out. So you were watching, I already watched it the first time, X-Men, the 90s show that is now X-Men 97, the Spider-Man show, and all the shows that have come out. They started replaying those again, so I got obsessed with those. And with that comes, those shows are really good in terms of, introducing real comic book storylines and bringing them to life via animation. So I got invested in wanting to become more and more into actual comics. So when I got to high school, I was like, I want to get into comics. I want to start reading, man. I want to get into whatever the story they're telling right now. And then I quickly learned what it means to be a comic book fan and some of the plights that come with that. And like one of the things, like it's sometimes can be impossible to just drop into a comic. It's like, okay, you want to start reading comics? Here's Spider-Man 567. What's happening? Figure it out. It's like, where do I begin? And it can be hard to like begin at the right spot or where to start. It can be a mess. So I learned this, but I got in anyway. What got me locked into that whole world was essentially Civil War and really post-Civil War. The post-registration, death of Captain America, all that stuff, I was like, I'm hooked. I want to read this. I want to get into this. And that era from about Civil War to probably like Fear Itself, that's like a 4-year stretch, mostly through my end of my high school and in my college years. I was reading Marvel comics almost regularly. I didn't read that much DC during that time. I was almost purely Marvel. But I was into it. I was hooked. I was going to, I was in the city, so I was going to Midtown Comics every week to pick up comics. I had an account. I still have an account. It's still my college account from when I was a kid. So I was locked in completely to comics. And like most things in life, like, again, it's hard to keep up. So you lose track, or I leave school, and now I'm not in the city, so I'm not picking up my comics regularly. I started reading a little bit again. When they did DC Rebirth, they got back into it and started reading consistently again. But then you fall off because, you're reading all these books and you got all these books everywhere. So I kind of fell off a little bit. For probably 3 or 4 years, I probably about fell off. And when I was Christmas last year, I was like, 2 years ago, I was like, I want to get back to reading comics. But I was like, I can't, I was having this subscription where they were bringing me the X-Men Krakoa stuff. I felt that to be overwhelming because it was a lot. I was like, I don't want to do that again. I wish there was a way I can do something that felt a little cleaner. So I got subscriptions to Marvel Unlimited. And I don't mean for this to be a commercial for Marvel Unlimited. But Marvel Unlimited, I got DC Infinite. Essentially, they're year-long subscriptions. Well, I got year-long. You can do monthlies. Where you can read basically every comic that they have, more or less. Basically 1 month. For DC, I have 1 month prior to their release. And for Marvel, 3 months. I think this is great. Because I can keep locked in. It'll keep me on track of where I am with the books that I'm reading, and it'll be organized, and it's on just one iPad. It's not all these books that are flying around. Andre was going crazy. It's like, you have all these freaking books like that are just all over this apartment. I'm like, I know, I'm not good at organizing either. This was a lot cleaner. As much as, again, I told you guys a couple weeks ago, I was like, I probably have thousands of dollars worth of comics in PA, because my dad was talking about, you got like Civil War, you got like Secret Invasion, you got crazy stuff in here, and like original copies. I'm like, yeah, I guess I was really involved. That's probably, I'm not selling those for anything, because that is my life in many ways. But I probably could make a lot of money if I did try to sell them. And let's see how long I don't have a job. Maybe I'll have to get ideas. I'm just joking. But no, it's big. So I was like, I want to get into it, and I was like, what was great was both Marvel and DC were starting new initiatives. DC was doing their Absolute Universe, which I did start, and I'll probably get back into because it was dope. It was dope what I was reading. It was like I was reading that in Marvel Ultimate Universe. It was like one or the other, and Marvel Ultimate Universe ended up hooking me a little more. So I was 2 years behind. Like, I got this, and it was like, what was great about the app was it basically said, hey, you want to read all of the first year of Ultimate Universe. Here it all is in order. And I was like, it had to be 100 books. I was like, this is daunting, but you know what? I'm going to commit. And I started during my vacation in Mexico last year, where most of my days were spent on the beach reading comics and eating tacos and drinking Mexican colas. And it was a great time. These books were awesome. And now we're coming to what is appearing to be the end of the Ultimate Universe. And I got to tell you guys, if I can make a pitch to you guys to get locked in and read these books, I suggest it. Basically, here's what the Ultimate Universe is. So Marvel has the typical 616 comic book universe, similar to what they have in the movies now. They introduced the multiverse, and the universe we're watching is the 616, which is the basically the official sacred timeline. If you're watching Loki and those things, right? It's the main timeline that we care about. There's a multiverse in the movie, just like there's a multiverse in the comics. Well, there was. So there was a multiverse where there was a other universe that was deemed for sake of branding, the Ultimate Universe, which is like the 1610 universe. It's basically this universe, but like some slight tweaks to certain things. So like Nick Fury's black in this universe. Hank Pym is like like an abusive jerk in this universe. You know, there's little tweaks. You know, Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and then he dies, and then Miles Morales shows up, right? And Miles Morales is the Spider-Man of this universe. So there's all these different tweaks to it. There's fun tweaks to it, some weird stuff. It's a little hit or miss overall. But this was Marvel basically saying that they wanted to, because they were kind of locked into so much canon for the old universe. They wanted to have a different multiverse universe that they can build different stories, new ideas, and push concepts they would never do in the main continuity. And there was some great stuff. There was some weird stuff. One of the great stuff was the development of Reed Richards, who was, of course, Mr. Fantastic, captain of the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards, as you know, because he's Mr. Fantastic, is a superhero. He's the leader of Fantastic Four. And they presented the Fantastic Four comics in the Ultimate Universe as the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and the Thing, Ben Grimm. You think the story is going as you would expect with the Fantastic Four. Only this Reed Richards is a sociopath. And this Reed Richards has, probably has some kind of personality disorder. And this Reed Richards, when he starts doing some things that are kind of shady and pushing the envelope and then gets rejected by Sue Storm in terms of his advancements, turns into a supervillain. And not just any supervillain. The worst supervillain. Because think about if Reed Richards had, with that brain, committed it to pure evil. And the thought process that he was superior to other people and he had a superior way of how the world should be ruled, and he was determined to make the world into whatever his brain came up with, and he was evil. Imagine that. That is what the old Ultimate Universe did with that Reed Richards. So he became the villain called the Maker. He built this own city where he was trying to create these perfect beings and perfect utopia world in his warped mind. But he's still a super genius, so he's extremely dangerous. He was the biggest villain in this Ultimate Universe. When Secret Wars happens, which we're about to see Marvel's Avengers Secret Wars in a couple of years, the world's collapsed. That universe collapsed in its own. Only Miles Morales and Reed Richards survived from that old universe. So Reed Richards, Miles Morales, they're like, Peter Parker, everybody, they put their arms around him. He's the man. The Maker, who was the villain of the last Secret Wars comic book, he's, of course, in a super prison somewhere. Like, he's there making sure that you're a dangerous man. But like all super villains, they break out. And they try to catch him, but they can't. So basically, they're forced with the, and you're saying he grabs all this stuff. He grabs vibranium. He grabs stuff from Asgard. He grabs all these different ingredients, basically, to execute his breakout and build a time portal to send him to a different dimension. Before he leaves, he asks Reed Richards, if there was one thing, if you could change the world into your own image, would you do it? And then Reed Richards said yes. He said noted and left. And we're like, okay. He goes to a new universe and he creates a world, which is the world I am now living in this new Ultimate Universe. That's the books I'm reading. It is a world where what if this evil version of Reed Richards went back in time into a different dimension, a different universe, and made a world where superheroes didn't exist. And the only people that had powers were people that he could manipulate to be part of his cabal of villains. What would that world look like? And how does he do it? It starts with him stopping Peter Parker from getting bit by the spider. He does all these little small things to change people's lives so that they don't become who they become. And ends up being to call it dystopian is harsh because it's not like it's torn down or anything. Like, New York City is still New York City and everything. But it's just a world where, like, he runs everything. The United States has collapsed. Many of the countries' governments that we know of have collapsed, and now they're just regions of the world being run by supervillains. The Hulk is one of them. Colossus and Magic are running a Eurasia Republic, where that is where all of the mutants are being like basically experimented on and brutalized under, you know, basically the Kremlin, but is being run by Colossus. America again is collapsed. It is crazy. It is crazy. And basically the story is about what happens with Howard Stark, who finds out that this whole world is essentially a lie, and is able to lock the Maker in his own utopian city that he's created outside of Latveria, and giving himself, his son, and everybody's outside time, essentially 2 years. It's basically a protocol for the city. It's like a safety protocol that he locked down the city for 2 years. 2 years to get your act together, to fix the world the way it's supposed to be. And then when he comes out, we can finally defeat this guy and get the world we were robbed of. Again, there are all these people that were supposed to be heroes that are not. So some people you think, oh, where is this person? Where is that person? Like Thor is not the Prince of Asgard. It's Loki. Loki runs Asgard. Like there's all these things. He screwed up everything. Everything is completely effed up. But through Tony Stark, who's a teenager in this world, and through his inspiration and the team he puts together, they slowly pick apart. They find some people. They do find a Steve Rogers. They do find some people. They find Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. They have, but only because Tony Stark is able to give these people their powers back. But people gotta want their powers back. People have to want to even believe this world is not what it's supposed to be. It's crazy. There's like basically 4 or 5 books. There's like Ultimate Wolverine, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther. There's also a Black Panther in this world, T'Challa. There's the Ultimates, which is the ultimate version of the Avengers, and those I think are the books. Oh, and Ultimate X-Men, which are nothing like the X-Men you would think. These are mutants from Japan. It's awesome, man, and I'm hooked. I'm locked in. I've been reading these for the last 2 years. Yesterday was a monumental day because obviously, like I told you, I had all the subscriptions up until 3 months before they come out. Yesterday was the day where I officially caught up. And I was like, wow, I did it. I'm officially now 3 months behind where every book is. I've read every single one. I didn't complete Ultimate X-Men. It was a little not my cup of tea, but it might be yours. I don't suggest not reading. It's very different art style. It's very Japanese manga influence. And I was like, I don't know if I can read this for 24 issues. So I kind of bailed on that one. I read the first few. And they show up in other books, so I've kind of got an idea of where that story is gone. But I've read all Ultimate Spider-Man. I've read all Ultimates. I read all the Ultimate Black Panther. I read all Ultimate Wolverine. And I was like, I could stop here and wait for 3 months and not try to get spoiled. Or I could just start buying the books. So last night what I did was I started buying the books that I'm now 3 months ahead of. So now I had to get back to getting caught up. So if I had to make a pitch, man, check out the Ultimate Universe. If you buy Marvel Unlimited, you get the books in order. You can just read them in order. They're so much fun. They're so well written. Denise Camp writes the Ultimates. He's writing this new event, Ultimate Endgame. So they're having their version of Endgame, like the Avengers movie. They're doing it in this universe where now that it's been 2 years, because every issue is essentially 1 month in real time in this world. It's not been 2 years. So the Maker's city has come up, and now he is free to come and terrorize people as he normally does. How will this new world that now knows that this is all facade and knows that they've been played and knows that there are basically dictators running the show all throughout the world, how can the Maker beat back this rebellion that has been created by Tony Stark and America Chavez and who else? And again, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne the Wasp, all these different heroes that have come together. Spider-Man, right? He does eventually become Spider-Man. He gets the Tony Stark gives him the spider and gives him the Pio suit, and now he's Spider-Man again, right? Like, what happens in that world? And that's what I'm reading right now. So I'm having a ton of fun. That's my pitch to you guys. If you're going to start reading the comic books, it's a little late, but you do what I do. Go back, read all the Ultimate books. And I didn't spoil anything for you guys in terms of, like, the big stuff that happens during the books. They're awesome. And I'm reading Ultimate Endgame, and I was having a fun time. I had to post it on social media that I finally did it. I finally made it to Ultimate Endgame 1. I will make one complaint. Because as you guys may have saw on social media when I posted it, I might be able to show you guys. I posted my picture because I've been so in love with this this run. Again, Denise Camp and Jonathan Hickman. Jonathan Hickman is one of the best, if not the best, comic book writer out right now, in my opinion. And Denise Camp, who I was not familiar with. This was literally a Shaq, you know, apologies, I'm not familiar with your game. I'd never heard of Denise Camp until he started writing Ultimates. He's also writing Martian Manhunter, so if you're into DC, he's also writing for DC as well. He's the man that's ahead. Actually, I'm doing this. I should just download this picture. That'd be like quicker. Though I don't know. I was having trouble last time because now my computer's going really slow. So I may or may not be able to give this to you. But I bought, you know, I was like, oh, I'm almost caught up, and I went to the comic book store. I was like, you know what? For Ultimate Endgame 1, I'm gonna get the actual physical, because like this is the culmination of me reading on my iPad for a year, and I want to celebrate that by getting the actual physical copy. So I went to my to my comic book store, Midtown Comics, and picked up Ultimate Endgame, and I got not just the regular version from the first version. I got like the super variant. It was like $10. Like it was like glossy cover. It's a cool picture of the maker. I wish, matter of fact, let me see if I can just do it from my phone so I can show you guys. Cause I'm trying to figure out. Let's see. I want to show you guys this cover. I'll show you why I'm annoyed. Cause the book is awesome and the cover is awesome, but I'm annoyed for a very important reason. All right, let me save the photo. Okay, let me now put this on my computer. Again, here we are again producing the show in front of all you people, which is great. Love doing that. I say that sarcastically. Okay, so here's a picture. Let's hope it actually shows up this time of the comic I bought, which is Ultimate Endgame 1. Let's see. There you go. I was very excited to see that. Looks awesome. It's a great cover. So that's like and you kind of see it from there a little bit, but it's like legitimately very it's like glossy covered. It's like a little like what's the word? Not like a hydro, whatever they call that thing, where it kind of like moves in the light. It's awesome. It's an awesome cover. And I was like, I gotta get this one for my first one. Then the words are cut off at the top. Like whoever printed this book, I don't know if it's this version or all the versions of this book that are the variant, but like they're all, like basically the top of the top panels are not all there. So you can't read, if there's top words on there, you can't read all the words or see all the art. So I actually had to then buy the digital, because I was like, I'm going to buy the digital because I want to read it. But I was annoyed. I was like, yo, I can't read this book. I bought this book for $10 and it had a whole special cover and everything, and it wasn't even like readable because you couldn't read the top of it. So that was a little annoying. But that's the cover of Ultimate Endgame 1. That's the maker, by the way. That's the evil version of Reed Richards I was talking about. And I'll tell you, you want to talk about great villains and people that hate? I've texted my good friend Billy Torres, like, the maker makes me want to fight him. Like, he is so mean and so cruel. Like, what he does to this world, Reed Richards, is diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. Again, we live in a world where, there are some villains that, like, we live in a world where we always want to root for the villains, right? When it comes to wrestling, when it comes to real life. Like, we seem to like the villains. Like, the villains have, in some ways, kind of become the heroes. They kind of become the baby faces. It's a weird time in our society. This guy is an old school villain to hate. You hate this guy. He's the worst. He's a terrible person. And I love that they created a villain like that, where there is no redeeming, well, he's kind of funny, or well, he's kind of whatever. And no, not this guy. This guy, you want to fight this guy after every issue you see him doing the stuff he's doing. He is a scumbag. Absolute grade A scumbag. And he's a great villain. And he's a great kind of final boss for this endgame story that they're telling. Book's awesome. This first issue was awesome. I know issue 2 just came out. I'm probably going to read that soon today as well. But I read this. I read Ultimates 19 again. I'm pretty much caught up now. So I'm all locked in. We got Rob DeRay in the chat asking a question. What the heck do you mean the boom wasn't readable? I mean, the book wasn't readable. So you see how, like, the top of the cover clearly isn't cut off, right? Like, it looks fine. But when you open the book, Rob, the top, it's almost like the best way I can describe it is it's like the book need to be like 3 or 4 centimeters taller. Like, there's not enough of the top stuff from the book. So what ends up happening is, like, there's actual dialogue or artwork, and at the top that is just cut off. I didn't even know it until I read the second page. Like, the first page looked fine. In the second page, I was like, oh, why does that look weird? Why is it cut off? And I thought first maybe is it artistic? Like, they're trying to like tell me something that, oh, like, here's information, but you can't fully read it. Because sometimes that will happen too. But then the next page had the same thing. And that had like actual dialogue. And I was like, okay, I can't read this because I'm missing actual conversation that's happening now. So it wasn't readable because the top of this book, the words were cut off. The art was cut off. Everything was cut off. Again, it was something that was supposed to be 11 by 14, and instead it was 11 by 13. Like, imagine something. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, it was just short. It just didn't have all the content. Now Rod Ray's in the chat being like, that is bananas. Yeah, it's crazy. This is the plight of comic book fans, by the way. This can happen to you. Like, this has happened to me before. Where I bought a book and like clearly something is wrong with how my book got printed. Like, could I make a big stink and go to Midtown tomorrow and say, hey man, I bought this book and like it's cut off? There's, quite frankly, because this is a special variant cover, there's a chance now I'm getting super nerdy. It's like, as I get super nasally, so now I sound really like a little nerd. Because this is a variant cover and it was limited edition, like there's a very good chance this cover, they don't have this cover, like they don't have it. So I would just get my money back, I guess. If they even allowed to take back books. It's in mint condition. I put it right back in that plastic as soon as I was done. The label is off because I wouldn't take the label off when I took the picture, but otherwise everything else is fine. I read it 2 pages and closed it and put it back in. It's in mint condition. But yeah, you're kind of just stuck. Like, typically you just be like, oh, I guess I got to get another book or whatever, or go back to the comic book store and show what happened. Or sometimes Marvel just has issues. Like, this has happened where Marvel will have an issue in a print. Marvel has like Marvel and DC. There have been like typos, like typos, things that don't make sense. You're like, what the hell? And you realize, oh, that's a typo. And then in the reprint, they fix it. Like, they have reprints of these books all the time. They probably won't have a reprint of this variant though. This is a special variant. Again, getting super nerdy. Very special edition cover for this. Then I can print this again. But I don't know. Maybe they will, because I didn't get to read because I've been so afraid of getting spoiled. I rarely search anything on the internet. I know a little bit of things I can read on Reddit if I search the right thing to not get spoiled. Like, I'm very much a fan of like the Ultimate Universe Reddit page, but I can't actually just go to it. What I do is I search the book I just read in Reddit, and typically it will give me the thread for that book, and then I'll read along with everybody else what they thought. But because I've been afraid of being spoiled, I can't, and because I've been 2 years behind, I've been trying to just not read anything on the internet. So I don't know if this was like every Ultimate Endgame book. Like, I don't know if this is some massive catastrophe that every Endgame book dealt with. I assumed it was because this is a special variant cover, they just effed up the printing. I don't know if it was every variant of this, because there were multiple variant covers. I don't know if it was this variant or if it was just this issue. Like, I just got a bad issue, which is possible. That happens all the time. That happens times too, where you buy a book and you're like, wait, my issue's effed up. And then you go online, no one else is complaining about it, so you realize you just got a bad copy. It's human error. It's just human error. But yeah, Rob, it was crazy. Like, yeah, imagine getting a book. Any book. Like, forget about comics. Comics, in a way, like, they almost was able to get away with it. Because, like, again, it was the very top of the page. And most of the time, the top of the page doesn't have that much important information. But this book did. It was like 2 pages. I was like, I can't read this. I'm gonna miss important information. And it sucked. I wanted to read the physical for the first issue. I was probably gonna do the rest of it just on the digital. The first, I wanted to read it, and I couldn't. So I had to then buy the digital last night. I don't mind having it because the cover is awesome. But yeah, this book, the top of it didn't exist. so it was like I said, that's why it was unreadable. It was crazy. But that's not a deterrent for you guys if you are into comics and you say, hey, I want to start, but like I don't know where to begin. I like starting here because, like, outside of knowing who the maker is, you don't have to really know anything else. It's literally a brand new world, which is why I liked it. That's why I was like, this is a perfect book to begin with, because everything I'm reading, I take at face value. Like, yes, there are references to characters or people simply because of the history of Marvel, but it's a whole different world. So it's not like, oh, I didn't read Ultimates 16 from the old universe to know what this, like, you don't have to worry about any of that. Learn who the maker is, know his backstory, which is very easy to look up, and You see very early on how diabolically evil this man is. And that alone will make you just want to keep reading because you want to see this guy get punched in the face or get killed. But the rest of it, you don't have to worry about. You know who Spider-Man is? You know that he's married to Mary Jane? Okay, good. You're good. You know the concept of Logan and Wolverine? Okay, you're good. Everything else, you can't assume anything else because every story that, again, what they've done to all these characters, some characters don't even exist. The maker has purposely made sure some characters don't exist. Some people don't exist. So you can take the world at face value. And what's great about the books are, because of our climate, where you're talking about a supreme leader who is 100% a fascist, it's like, it does feel very, like, some of the commentary does feel very appropriate for what we're dealing with today. Where sometimes you see things, you're like, holy crap. Like, they could have predicted this was going to happen, but this literally just happened yesterday or something like that. It's crazy. Awesome book. Despite the fact that I had a defaulting issue that happened, a faulty issue that came out that I had, but nonetheless, still enjoy it. But that's going to do it, man. That's my comic book nerding out for today. I hadn't done a comic book nerd out yet. I don't know if you'll get another one, because I have to read Ultimate Endgame 2, but then the next Ultimate is going to come out till next month after 40 Days and 40 Nights is up. So I have to make my plea. I told all my friends. I think everyone who I know who's even remotely interested in comics, they've all heard this same speech of me trying to pitch to them to read, the new Ultimate Universe. By my count, I think my friend Billy has been the one who did it, and he will also co-sign what I am telling you, that these books are gas. They're so freaking good. I was reading the book yesterday. I was like, man, I feel like I was talking to Andrea. I think you would like this story. She's like, maybe I should read it. Like, even she's intrigued by what I've told her about it. She doesn't read comics at all. She reads a lot, not comics. So I don't know if there'll be another nerd out session, but this was a fun one to have. This was a fun show overall, man. That'll do it for today, though. I'll be back tonight, as I always am, for 40 Days and 40 Nights. Again, be sure to subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you follow me on X and Instagram, XEJ_Stewart, and Instagram, ActionEJ. Also, be sure to subscribe to the podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. Get this show and all the other episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys in the comments. You guys were very active today, so I made it a lot of fun. I'll be back 6 p.m., hopefully sharp. 6 p.m. See you guys later.